Rain hammered the neon-soaked streets of Las Vegas as Aria Vale's trembling fingers wrapped around the sleeve of a stranger's $1,000 suit. Across the casino floor, her ex-boyfriend Trevor laughed with his new girlfriend, the socialite with perfect teeth and zero bruises hidden under makeup. Aria's cocktail waitress uniform suddenly felt cheaper than the lies she'd told herself about escaping him. The man beside her turned slowly, and the entire room shifted. Security guards straightened. Dealers went silent. "Pretend you love me," she whispered. "Just 5 minutes." His obsidian eyes studied her bruised wrist. "My name is Lucien Moretti," he said softly, "and no one disrespects what's mine." Trevor's face drained white. Too late, Aria realized she hadn't asked an ordinary man for help. She'd stepped into the orbit of Nevada's most feared crime family, and somehow the devil had decided to keep her. If you want to see where this dangerous love story goes, hit that like button and comment your city below so I can see how far Aria's story travels. Now let's dive in. The thing about drowning was that nobody noticed until you stopped moving. Aria Vale had been drowning for 3 years, and not one person in the Oasis Grand Casino had looked twice. She carried trays of overpriced cocktails through forests of slot machines while elderly gamblers fed their social security checks into flashing screens. She smiled when middle-aged businessmen let their eyes linger too long on her uniform. She pretended the ache in her feet didn't exist after 12-hour shifts in heels designed to make her legs look longer, not to actually walk in. She pretended a lot of things, like the bruise on her ribs from 2 weeks ago had faded properly. Like the concealer covering the finger-shaped marks on her wrist was just makeup for a costume party she never attended. Like Trevor Knox calling her phone 17 times during her last shift was totally normal behavior from an ex-boyfriend she'd left 6 months prior. The Friday night crowd pressed thick around the high-limit tables, a mixture of cologne, desperation, and expensive mistakes. Aria moved through them like a ghost, her tray balanced perfectly, despite the tremor in her hands that never quite disappeared anymore. She saw Trevor the moment he walked through the brass-trimmed entrance. Her body recognized the threat before her brain processed it. Heart rate spiking, breath catching, the tray wobbling just slightly before training kicked in and she steadied it. He wasn't alone. The woman beside him wore a dress that cost more than Aria's rent. Blonde hair swept into an elegant updo, diamonds glittering at her throat. The kind of woman who'd never served drinks for tips, never hidden bruises under long sleeves in summer, never locked herself in a bathroom while someone she loved punched holes in the door. Trevor's arm draped possessively around the blonde's waist as he guided her toward the roulette tables. His other hand gestured broadly while he talked, drawing attention, commanding space. He'd always been good at that, making himself the center of every room, the loudest voice, the most important person present. Aria's feet stopped moving. 3 years of cocktail service vanished as every instinct screamed at her to run. But running meant crossing his line of sight. Running meant he'd see her in this stupid uniform with its stupid ruffles, serving drinks while he paraded his upgrade through the casino like a victory lap. "You planning to grow roots, sweetheart?" The voice came from her left. A pit boss named Marcus, who'd worked the Oasis for 15 years and had probably seen every flavor of human disaster the gambling industry could produce. "I'm fine," Aria lied. Marcus's expression said he didn't believe her, but casino employees learned early not to ask questions that might require action. He nodded toward the high-limit area. "VIP section needs a cocktail server. Interested?" The VIP section meant better tips. It also meant the farthest point from Trevor's current position. "Yeah," Aria said. "I'm interested." She delivered her current tray to the bar and grabbed a fresh one, her hands moving through the familiar motions while her mind raced. Trevor hadn't seen her yet. If she stayed in the VIP section, if she kept her head down, if she just made it through the next 4 hours of her shift. His laugh cut through the casino noise like broken glass. Aria's entire body flinched. She hated that she still reacted to the sound of his voice. Hated that 6 months of distance hadn't rewired the fear response he'd spent 3 years programming into her nervous system. She turned toward the VIP section, focusing on the thick carpet under her feet, the weight of the tray, anything except the man who'd once told her he'd kill her if she ever really left him. The VIP area occupied the northwest corner of the casino floor, separated from the main gaming space by frosted glass panels and the kind of subtle wealth that didn't need to announce itself. The carpet here was thicker, the lighting softer. The minimum bets started where most people's mortgage payments ended. A handful of players occupied the private tables, business executives unwinding after convention meetings. A couple celebrating an anniversary with champagne and terrible betting strategies. And at the center table, alone except for the dealer, sat a man who made everyone else in the section look like they were playing pretend. Arya had worked enough VIP shifts to recognize real power. This man radiated it like heat. He was tall. She could tell even with him seated, with dark hair styled with just enough attention to look effortless. His suit was charcoal gray, perfectly tailored, the kind of expensive that didn't need designer labels to prove its worth. Strong jaw, sharp cheekbones, the kind of face that belonged on magazine covers or movie screens, except for the coldness in his eyes that suggested he'd be more comfortable ending lives than posing for cameras. He played roulette with the focused calm of a man who'd stopped caring about money a long time ago. Arya approached the table carefully, her customer service smile fixed in place. "Can I get you anything, sir?" He didn't look up from the spinning wheel. "McAllen, neat." His voice was low, controlled, with an edge that suggested every word was measured before being released. The kind of voice that didn't repeat itself. "Right away," Arya said. She turned toward the bar, and that's when she saw Trevor moving through the main casino floor in her direction. Not coincidence. He'd spotted her. The blonde girlfriend hung on his arm, oblivious to the predatory focus that had locked onto his face. Trevor's smile was the same one he'd worn right before the first time he hit her. Friendly, casual, completely at odds with the violence brewing underneath. Arya's breathing went shallow. The tray trembled in her hands. She had maybe 90 seconds before he reached the VIP section. Maybe 2 minutes before he said something loud enough to humiliate her in front of the high-limit players. Maybe 3 before he grabbed her arm hard enough to bruise and dragged her outside for a conversation that would end with her apologizing for making him angry. The man at the roulette table placed another stack of chips on black, still not looking at her. Arya made a decision. It was stupid, reckless, the kind of choice that came from 3 years of survival instincts and 0 good options. She moved around the table and slid onto the seat beside him, abandoning her tray on the nearby cocktail station. Up close, he was even more intimidating, broader shoulders, stronger hands, the kind of physical presence that came from violence comfortably integrated into a daily life. "I need you to do something for me," Arya said quietly. Finally, he looked at her. His eyes were obsidian, dark, unreadable, ancient. The kind of eyes that had seen things that would break most people and had simply absorbed them without flinching. "You're supposed to be bringing me scotch," he said. "I will, right after you pretend to be my boyfriend for 5 minutes. His expression didn't change. "Excuse me?" Trevor was 45 seconds away now, cutting through the gaming floor with purposeful strides. "There's a man coming over here who won't leave me alone," Arya said, hating how her voice cracked. "If he thinks I'm with someone, he'll back off. Please. Just 5 minutes." The stranger's gaze moved past her shoulder, tracking Trevor's approach with the casual precision of someone trained to identify threats. Something shifted in his expression, not sympathy exactly, but recognition. He saw the fear in her eyes. Worse, he understood it. "What's his name?" the stranger asked. "Trevor Knox." The obsidian eyes returned to her face. "And yours?" "Arya Vale." Trevor reached the VIP section boundary. 30 seconds. The stranger stood slowly, his height even more pronounced now that he'd unfolded from the chair. He was easily 6'2", maybe 6'3", with the kind of build that suggested expensive gym memberships and the discipline to actually use them. He stepped closer to Arya, his hand sliding to her waist with a possessiveness that felt terrifyingly real. "My name is Lucien Moretti," he said softly, his breath warm against her ear. "And if we're doing this, we do it right." The name registered somewhere in Arya's memory, something she'd heard whispered between dealers during slow shifts, mentioned in nervous tones by pit bosses, referenced in local news stories that never quite said what everyone suspected. But she didn't have time to process it, because Trevor was already pushing past the frosted glass partition, the blonde girlfriend trailing behind him with growing confusion. Arya! Trevor's voice boomed across the VIP section. The hell you doing over here? Lucian's arm tightened around her waist. Not painfully, but with absolute certainty. A claim being staked. Trevor stopped 3 feet from their table, his expression cycling rapidly between surprise and anger. I'm talking to you. She heard you, Lucien said quietly. Everyone in the casino heard you. It was the first time Arya had heard anyone speak to Trevor like that. Calm, unbothered, completely unimpressed by the aggression radiating off him in waves. Trevor's eyes narrowed as he finally registered Lucian's presence. Who the fuck are you? Someone you should walk away from, Lucien replied. The temperature in this VIP section dropped. Arya felt it in the way the dealers stopped shuffling chips, in the way the other players' conversations died mid-sentence, in the way casino security, 3 men in dark suits stationed near the entrance, suddenly went rigid. Trevor laughed, but it sounded forced. Arya, you really scraping bottom now? This your new sugar daddy? Leave, Arya said. We're not together anymore. You don't get to talk to me. I'll talk to you however I want, Trevor snapped. He reached for her arm. You're coming outside so we can... Lucien caught Trevor's wrist mid-grab. It happened so fast that Arya barely registered the movement. One moment Trevor was reaching for her, the next Lucien had intercepted him with the kind of speed that suggested extensive training in hurting people efficiently. Touch her, Lucien said softly, and you'll be leaving this casino in an ambulance. Trevor's face flushed red. You threatening me? Explaining consequences. The 3 security guards were moving now, crossing the VIP section with purpose. But they weren't coming to break up the confrontation. They were positioning themselves behind Lucien. Trevor's girlfriend tugged at his sleeve. Baby, let's just go. This is embarrassing. Shut up, Melissa, Trevor snarled, still locked in Lucian's grip. His eyes found Arya's face. You think you upgraded? You think this asshole's any different than me? He hasn't hit me yet, Arya said quietly. So yeah, already an improvement. Trevor's expression twisted into something ugly. You lying bitch, I never... Mr. Knox, the voice came from behind him. Marcus, the pit boss, flanked by 2 additional security personnel. You need to leave the property. Now. Like hell I do, Trevor said. I've got 10 grand on a table over there. Which we'll cash out and mail you, Marcus replied. But you're done here tonight. Trevor finally yanked his wrist free from Lucian's grip, stumbling back a step. You know who I am? My father's got connections in this city. Your father, Lucien interrupted quietly, runs a second-rate construction company that can't bid on major contracts without greasing union officials. I know exactly who you are, Trevor. The question is whether you know who I am. The silence that followed felt like standing on the edge of a cliff. Trevor's face had gone pale. Something in Lucian's tone, or maybe the name itself finally clicking into place, had clearly registered. Moretti, Trevor said slowly. Now you're learning, Lucien replied. Trevor took another step backward, his bravado cracking. The girlfriend looked between them with growing alarm, clearly sensing the shift in power dynamics without understanding the details. This isn't over, Trevor said, pointing at Arya. Yes, Lucien said. It is. Security escorted Trevor and his girlfriend toward the exit. Trevor kept looking back over his shoulder, his expression cycling between humiliation and rage. Arya knew that look. It meant consequences. It meant he'd find her later, corner her in the parking garage or outside her apartment, make sure she understood the price of embarrassing him. Her hands were shaking again. Lucien guided her back to the chair, his movements surprisingly gentle for someone who'd just threatened violence so casually. Sit. Arya sat. The dealer, an older woman with kind eyes and 30 years of reading people, pushed a glass of water across the table. You okay, honey? Fine, Arya lied. I'm fine. Lucien returned to his seat, adjusting his cufflinks with the kind of attention to detail that suggested compulsive control. How long? How long what? Arya asked. How long has he been hitting you? The directness of the question punched through her defenses. Most people danced around it, asked if everything was okay at home, suggested she seemed stressed, offered vague sympathy without actually acknowledging the reality. 3 years, Arya said. We broke up 6 months ago. He doesn't accept it. Lucien's jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. He'll accept it now. You don't know Trevor. He's a coward who hits women because he's too weak to face actual threats, Lucien interrupted. I've known 100 men like him. They're loud until someone punches back. The dealer dealt another round, though neither of them placed bets. The casino sounds filtered back gradually, slot machines chiming, conversations resuming, normalcy reasserting itself over the violence that had almost erupted. Arya's shift supervisor appeared at the VIP section entrance, her expression caught between concern and irritation. Arya, you're supposed to be working. She is working, Lucien said without looking up. She's serving my table exclusively for the rest of the night. I'll compensate appropriately. The supervisor's eyes went wide. Of course, Mr. Moretti. Whatever you need. She disappeared before Arya could protest. You didn't have to do that, Arya said. No, Lucien agreed. But I don't like people being bothered while they're serving me scotch that I still haven't received. Despite everything, Arya almost smiled. I'll get it right now. She retrieved the Macallan from the bar, her legs still unsteady but functional. When she returned, Lucien had placed a significant stack of chips on red. He accepted the scotch, took a measured sip, and nodded approval. Sit. I'm supposed to be working. You are. Sit. Arya sat. The wheel spun. The ball clattered. Red. Lucien's chips doubled. He pushed half the winnings toward her. For your trouble. Arya stared at the chips. $5,000. More than she made in 2 months of shifts. I can't accept this. Why not? Because I don't know what it means. What you want from me. Lucien studied her with those unreadable obsidian eyes. Smart. Most people just take the money and figure out the cost later. I've already learned that lesson, Arya said. From Trevor. Among others. Lucien took another sip of scotch, his expression thoughtful. I'm hosting a family gathering next weekend. It requires me to bring a date. Someone presentable, someone who can navigate a room full of dangerous people without falling apart. Arya's stomach dropped. You want me to pretend to be your girlfriend? For one evening, in exchange for compensation, protection, and Trevor Knox never bothering you again. What kind of protection? The permanent kind. The way he said it, casual, certain, sent ice down Arya's spine. You mean you'd kill him? No, Lucien said. I mean he'd understand with absolute clarity that touching you again would result in consequences he couldn't survive. There's a difference. Arya's hands wrapped around the water glass the dealer had given her, needing something to anchor herself. Why me? You could hire a professional, an escort who actually knows how to do this. Because you have something they don't. What? Authenticity, Lucien said. You're genuinely afraid, genuinely hurt, genuinely trying to survive. That kind of truth is impossible to fake convincingly. So you want to use my trauma as a prop for your family dinner, Arya said flatly. Yes. At least he was honest. The dealer cleared her throat gently. Betting's closed. Lucien placed another stack on black without breaking eye contact with Arya. One evening, 8 hours maximum. You play the role of my devoted girlfriend. You smile. You hold my hand. You convince my family that I'm a man capable of normal human attachment. Are you? Arya asked. No. Which is why I need you. The wheel spun again. Black this time. More chips pushed in Lucien's direction. What happens if I say no? Arya asked. Nothing. You finish your shift. Trevor continues being a problem until eventually he does something that lands him in prison or gets him killed by someone less patient than me. You keep working here, keep hiding bruises, keep pretending you're fine when you're clearly drowning. Arya flinched at the accuracy of the assessment. What happens if I say yes? Lucien finished his scotch and stood, pulling a business card from his wallet. Heavy card stock, expensive printing, just a name and phone number. You call me tomorrow before noon. We discuss terms, compensation, and logistics. You get a week to prepare, then you spend one evening in my world, collect your payment, and walk away with enough money to disappear somewhere Trevor Knox will never find you. He placed the card on the table between them. Or, Lucien continued, you stay drowning. Your choice. He nodded to the dealer, then to Arya, and walked toward the VIP section exit with the same controlled grace he'd maintained throughout the entire encounter. Security guards fell into step around him, not escorting him, but orbiting him like moons around a planet. Arya stared at the business card. Behind her, the casino continued its endless cycle of wins and losses, hope and desperation. People making terrible decisions and calling it luck. Her shift ended at 2 in the morning. She avoided the parking garage, too isolated, too many shadows where Trevor might be waiting, and called a rideshare instead. The driver tried making conversation, but Arya's one-word answers eventually discouraged him. Her apartment was a studio in a converted motel off the strip, the kind of place where neighbors minded their business because everyone had something to hide. She locked the door, wedged a chair under the handle, and checked the window latches twice. Standard routine. The business card sat on her kitchen counter like a grenade. Lucien Moretti. She pulled out her phone and typed the name into Google. The first result was a news article from 6 months ago about a federal investigation into organized crime in Nevada. The Moretti family featured prominently: old money, new suspicions, connections to everything from construction to casinos to less legal enterprises that the article danced around without explicitly naming. There were photos. Lucien in a courtroom, expression board flanked by expensive lawyers. Lucien leaving a restaurant, security detail visible in the background. Lucien at a charity gala, looking like he'd rather be literally anywhere else. In every image, he radiated the same controlled power she'd seen at the roulette table. The same danger. Arya's phone buzzed. Unknown number. She almost didn't answer. Hello? Arya Vale. A woman's voice, professional, crisp. Who's asking? My name is Sophia Chen. I work for Lucien Moretti. He wanted me to provide some additional information regarding his proposal. Arya's heart rate spiked. How did you get this number? Mr. Moretti has access to the casino's employee database. Is now a convenient time to talk? Nothing about this was convenient. I guess. Excellent. The family gathering Mr. Moretti mentioned is scheduled for next Saturday evening at the Moretti estate, approximately 40 miles outside Las Vegas. Attendance is expected to include immediate family, business associates, and select members of the organization's inner circle. Your role would be to pose as Mr. Moretti's romantic partner for the duration of the event. What kind of organization? Arya asked, though she already knew the answer. A pause. One that values discretion and loyalty. A crime family. Mr. Moretti's family has diverse business interests, Sophia replied carefully, some more traditional than others. Arya laughed, the sound bitter even to her own ears. So I'd be fake dating a mobster. Mr. Moretti prefers businessman with complicated legacy, but yes, essentially. What's the compensation? $50,000, half deposited upon agreement, half after successful completion of the evening. Additionally, Mr. Moretti will ensure Trevor Knox is strongly discouraged from further contact. This includes legal pressure, financial incentives for distance, and if necessary, more direct intervention. $50,000. Arya could disappear on $50,000. New city, new name, new life, where Trevor's number wasn't saved in her phone under Do Not Answer. What's the catch? Arya asked. I'm sorry? Nobody gives $50,000 for 8 hours of pretending. What's the real cost? Another pause. Mr. Moretti requires absolute discretion. You would sign an NDA covering everything you observe at the gathering. You would be trained in basic social protocols to ensure believable performance. And you would understand that entering Mr. Moretti's world, even temporarily, carries inherent risks. What kind of risks? The kind that come from proximity to power, Sophia said. Mr. Moretti's enemies are numerous and creative. His family is suspicious of outsiders. The FBI maintains active surveillance on Moretti properties and associates. Simply attending this gathering will put you on their radar. Arya thought about Trevor's face when he'd heard Lucien's name. The genuine fear that had cracked through his usual bravado. She thought about 3 years of walking on eggshells, apologizing for his anger, hiding bruises, lying to concerned friends until they stopped asking. She thought about the bruise on her ribs that still ached when she breathed too deep. I'll call tomorrow before noon, Arya said. Excellent. I look forward to hearing from you, Ms. Vale. The line went dead. Arya set her phone down and stared at the business card again. One evening, 8 hours, $50,000 and freedom from Trevor Knox. She picked up the card and held it over the kitchen trash can. One evening with a dangerous stranger versus a lifetime of looking over her shoulder. The card hovered. Then Arya pulled her hand back and tucked the card into her wallet instead. She didn't sleep that night, just lay in bed watching shadows move across the ceiling, listening to her neighbors argue through thin walls, wondering if she'd just made the best decision of her life or signed her own death warrant. At 11:45 the next morning, Arya called the number on the card. Lucien answered on the second ring. "I'm in," Arya said, "but I have conditions." "I'm listening. No one touches me without permission. No surprises. And if at any point I want to leave, I leave. No questions." "Agreed. And I want 75,000. A pause. Then a low chuckle that sounded like approval. 75 it is. Sophia will handle the contracts and logistics. You start training Monday." "Training for what?" "For surviving an evening with my family," Lucien said. "Trust me, you'll need it." He hung up before Arya could respond. 3 days later, a black car arrived at her apartment building at precisely 9 in the morning. The driver, a silent man built like a linebacker, handed her a garment bag and a note written in sharp, masculine handwriting. "Wear this. Leave your phone. The training begins now. LM." Inside the garment bag was a dress worth more than her car. Charcoal gray silk with clean lines and elegant simplicity. Designer shoes that actually fit. Subtle jewelry that probably cost more than her annual salary. Arya changed in her bathroom, staring at her reflection. The woman looking back didn't look like a cocktail waitress anymore. She looked like someone who belonged in Lucien Moretti's world. The car drove her deep into the Nevada desert, past gated communities and golf courses, until they reached a compound that looked like it had been designed to repel small armies. High walls, security cameras, guards with earpieces and poorly concealed weapons. The Moretti estate. Sophia Chen met her at the entrance, a striking woman in her 30s with sharp eyes and sharper suits. "Miss Vale, welcome. We have a lot of work to do in very little time." The week that followed shattered every assumption Arya had about her new arrangement. She wasn't just playing dress-up. She was being transformed. Stylists taught her how to move in expensive clothes, how to wear jewelry like she'd been born to it, how to make cheap makeup look intentional instead of desperate. Dialect coaches softened her Vegas accent, replaced casual slang with educated precision. Etiquette instructors drilled her on which fork to use, how to hold wine glasses, the art of making small talk with people who could have you killed without raising their voices. Lucien appeared periodically, observing from a distance, occasionally correcting something. Her posture, her laugh, the way she made eye contact. "Too submissive," he said during a practice dinner on Thursday evening. "You're supposed to be my girlfriend, not my servant." "Hard to forget you're paying me," Arya replied. "Then act like you enjoy spending my money," Lucien said. "Rich people don't apologize for their wealth." By Friday, Arya could identify undercover federal agents by their shoes and watch brands. She knew which Moretti associates were soldiers versus administrators. She understood the subtle body language that communicated hierarchy without words. Sophia cornered her after the final training session. "You're doing better than expected." "Low bars," Arya said. "Lower than you think. Most people Mr. Moretti brings around can't handle the pressure. They smile too much, talk too little, break under scrutiny." Sophia's expression turned serious. "Tomorrow's not a performance. It's a test. Pass and you collect your money. Fail and you become a liability." "What happens to liabilities?" Arya asked. Sophia's smile didn't reach her eyes. "They get managed." That night, Lucien summoned Arya to his study, a room that smelled like expensive leather and old money. He poured 2 glasses of wine without asking if she wanted one. "Last chance to walk away," he said, handing her a glass. "You'd let me?" "With the first half of your payment and an NDA, you'd be financially secure and free of Trevor Knox. No strings." Arya took a sip. The wine tasted like it cost more than her rent. "But you'd prefer I didn't." "I'd prefer you understood what you're walking into," Lucien said. "My family isn't normal. My father is a man who's built empires on violence and fear. My uncle runs operations most people pretend don't exist. My cousins would sell me out for the right price. Tomorrow isn't about impressing them. It's about convincing them you're real enough that hurting you would hurt me." "Would it?" Arya asked. Lucien's obsidian eyes studied her. "Ask me again after tomorrow. He stepped closer, his hand lifting to her face. His thumb traced the line of her jaw with surprising gentleness. "This is the part where we practice," Lucien said quietly. "Practice what?" "Looking like I'm a man who's capable of love." Then he kissed her. It wasn't gentle, wasn't tentative. It was possession wrapped in heat, control masking as passion. His hand slid into her hair, angling her head exactly where he wanted it. His other arm wrapped around her waist, pulling her against him with the certainty of someone who'd never been told no. Arya's brain screamed this was part of the act, part of the training, part of the $50,000 transaction. Her body didn't care. She kissed him back. When Lucien finally pulled away, his expression was unreadable. "Tomorrow, we do this in front of 50 people who will analyze every breath, every touch, every micro-expression. If you can't sell it, they'll know." "I can sell it," Arya whispered. "Good." He stepped back, the distance between them suddenly feeling like miles. "The car will pick you up at 4. Wear the red dress Sophia selected. And Arya?" "Yeah? Don't trust anyone tomorrow, including me." He walked out, leaving her alone in the study with half a glass of expensive wine and the taste of him still on her lips. Arya touched her mouth, her heart racing. Tomorrow, she would walk into a gathering of criminals, mobsters, and people who'd built fortunes on other people's suffering. Tomorrow, she would pretend to love a man who'd just kissed her like he meant it, while simultaneously warning her not to trust him. Tomorrow, she would either collect $75,000 and disappear, or she'd discover that some deals cost more than money could measure. The red dress fit like a threat. Arya stood in front of her bathroom mirror at 3:30 Saturday afternoon, staring at a woman she barely recognized. The fabric hugged every curve with designer precision, not cheap sexy like her cocktail uniform, but expensive dangerous. The kind of dress that cost more than most people's cars and announced without words that the woman wearing it belonged to someone powerful. Her hands trembled as she fastened the diamond bracelet Sophia had delivered that morning along with a note. "Wear everything. Touch nothing else. SC." The earrings came next, then the necklace that sat heavy and cold against her collarbone like a beautiful noose. Arya's phone buzzed. Not her real phone. That one sat powered off in a drawer per Lucien's instructions. This was a burner Sophia had provided, programmed with exactly 3 contacts: Lucien, Sophia, and the driver. "Car arrives in 15 minutes. Eat something. You won't get another chance until after midnight. SC." Arya's stomach was too twisted to handle food, but she forced down half a protein bar anyway. Training had taught her that fainting during a Mafia dinner party was bad form. Mafia. The word still felt surreal. A week ago, she'd been serving cocktails and hiding from her abusive ex-boyfriend. Now she was about to walk into a gathering of Nevada's most feared crime family, pretending to be the girlfriend of their heir apparent. For $75,000, Arya touched the bracelet again, feeling the weight of the diamonds against her wrist. The first payment, $37,500, had appeared in a new bank account Sophia had set up 3 days ago. Real money, clean money, the kind of financial security Arya had never experienced. All she had to do was survive one evening. The black car arrived exactly on time, same driver as before, built like a wall, spoke like a monk. He held the door without meeting her eyes. The drive took 40 minutes, cutting through the desert as the sun bled red across the horizon. Arya watched the landscape transform from city to emptiness, the distance between her and civilization growing with each mile. No neighbors to hear screaming out here, no witnesses, no evidence. The Moretti estate rose from the desert like a fortress designed by someone who understood that beauty and violence weren't mutually exclusive. High stone walls surrounded the property, topped with security systems that probably cost more than Arya's entire apartment building. The main house was Spanish colonial architecture mixed with modern security features. Cameras hidden in decorative ironwork, reinforced windows that looked antique but could probably withstand small arms fire. Armed guards flanked the entrance. Arya's breathing went shallow. The driver noticed. "Mr. Moretti is waiting inside. You walk through the front door, you're under his protection. Nobody touches you without his permission." "And if I don't walk through the front door?" Arya asked. "Then I drive you home and you never speak about this place again." The ultimatum was clear. In or out. Safety or freedom? $75,000 or a life spent looking over her shoulder? Arya opened the car door herself. The heat hit her immediately, dry desert air still radiating warmth even as the sun descended. Her heels clicked against stone pavers as she approached the entrance, each step feeling like walking toward a cliff edge. The front door opened before she reached it. Lucien stood in the doorway wearing a black suit that looked like it had been designed specifically to make him more intimidating. His dark hair was styled with casual precision. His obsidian eyes tracked her approach with the focus of a predator evaluating prey. But when Arya got close enough, she saw something else in his expression. Approval. "You look perfect," Lucien said quietly. "I look terrified," Arya replied. "Same thing in my world." He extended his hand. "Last chance to run." Arya placed her hand in his. "You keep saying that." "Because I mean it." His fingers closed around hers, warm, strong, certain. He pulled her inside and the door shut behind them with the finality of a cell locking. The interior of the Moretti estate was exactly what Arya had expected. Old money, new threats, and enough marble to build a museum. Crystal chandeliers hung from vaulted ceilings. Original artwork lined the walls, pieces that belonged in galleries, not private homes. Every surface gleamed with the kind of cleanliness that required full-time staff. Voices filtered from somewhere deeper in the house. Laughter, conversation, the sounds of people comfortable with power. Lucien kept hold of her hand as he guided her through the entrance hall. "Ground rules. You stay within 10 feet of me at all times. You don't accept drinks from anyone except Sophia or me. You don't go anywhere alone. If someone asks you a question you can't answer, you smile and deflect. Understood?" "What kind of questions?" Arya asked. "The kind designed to expose you as a fraud." They rounded a corner and entered a living room that could have housed Arya's entire apartment 3 times over. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked manicured gardens lit by strategically placed lighting. A full bar occupied one wall, staffed by a bartender who looked like he'd been hired for his ability to keep secrets rather than mix drinks. And everywhere, were Morettis. Arya recognized some faces from the research she'd done. Vittorio Moretti, the patriarch, held court near the fireplace. Late 60s, silver hair, the kind of face that had probably been handsome before violence, and time carved it into something harder. He wore a suit that cost more than most cars, and an expression that suggested he'd forgotten how to smile genuinely decades ago. Beside him stood a woman Arya assumed was Lucien's mother, elegant, cold, watching the room with eyes that missed nothing. Her jewelry alone could have funded a small country's GDP. Other family members clustered in groups, cousins, uncles, associates, all dressed expensively, all watching as Lucien entered with Arya on his arm. The conversations didn't stop, but they changed, quieter, more focused. Curiosity mixed with calculation. Sophia materialized beside them like a well-dressed ghost. "Vittorio wants to meet her before dinner." "Of course he does," Lucien muttered. His hand tightened around Arya's. "Remember what I taught you." They crossed the room toward the fireplace. Every step felt like walking through a minefield. Arya kept her spine straight, her expression pleasant but not eager. Her hand relaxed in Lucien's despite the adrenaline screaming through her system. Vittorio Moretti studied her approach with the focused attention of a jeweler examining a potentially fake diamond. Lucien stopped 3 feet from his father. "Papa, this is Arya Vale." Vittorio's eyes, the same obsidian shade as his son's, but colder, emptier, moved over Arya in a slow assessment that made her skin crawl. "Ms. Vale, my son speaks very highly of you." "Does he?" Arya kept her voice warm, curious. "He barely speaks at all most of the time." Several people nearby laughed. Vittorio's expression didn't change. "You work at the Oasis Grand," Vittorio said. It wasn't a question. "I did. I'm transitioning into event planning." The lie came smoothly, one of many Sophia had drilled into her during training. Transitioning. Vittorio tasted the word like wine he suspected had turned. Convenient timing. "Meeting Lucien was convenient timing," Arya replied. "The rest has been considerably more complicated." Another ripple of laughter, this time tinged with genuine amusement. Vittorio's mouth almost curved into something resembling a smile. "You have spine. Good. My son needs someone who won't break easily." He shifted his attention to Lucien. We need to discuss the Henderson acquisition before dinner. Later, Lucien said. Now. The single word carried absolute authority. Arya felt Lucien's entire body tense beside her. Sophia will keep Arya company, Vittorio continued, already turning away. 10 minutes. It wasn't a request. Lucien leaned close to Arya's ear, his breath warm against her skin. Stay with Sophia. Don't answer questions about me. I'll be back. Then he released her hand and followed his father toward a side door, leaving Arya standing in a room full of criminals with only Sophia as backup. Well, Sophia said quietly, you survived the first test. How many more are there? Arya asked. 12, if you're lucky, 20 if they don't like you. Sophia guided her toward the bar. Mineral water with lime. Trust me. The bartender prepared the drink without being asked, which meant Lucien had already given instructions. Arya accepted the glass, grateful to have something to do with her hands. A woman approached from the left, late 20s, beautiful in a sharp-edged way, wearing a dress that cost more than Arya's car. So you're the cocktail waitress. Sophia stiffened almost imperceptibly. Arya took a sip of her mineral water, buying time. Training had covered this scenario. Deflect. Don't engage. Maintain pleasant distance. I'm Arya, she said, extending her free hand. And you are? Isabella Moretti, Lucien's cousin. She accepted the handshake with the enthusiasm of someone touching garbage. How long have you two been together? 4 months, Arya replied. The timeline Sophia had constructed. Though it feels longer. I'm sure it does. Isabella's smile didn't reach her eyes. Lucien doesn't usually bring outsiders to family gatherings. You must be special. The word special carried implications that had nothing to do with compliments. Or I'm just stubborn enough to tolerate him, Arya said lightly. A man Arya recognized from her research joined them. Marco Moretti, Vittorio's younger brother, responsible for the family's alternative revenue streams, according to the FBI files she'd read. He was shorter than Lucien, but broader, with the build of someone who'd done his own violence before delegating it to others. The cocktail waitress has humor, Marco said. Refreshing. Most women Lucien dates are too terrified to speak. Most women Lucien dates don't last 4 months, Isabella added. Arya felt the trap closing. They were testing her, looking for cracks in the story, weaknesses in the performance. Sophia intervened smoothly. Arya, I need to show you something in the garden before dinner. Actually, Marco said, his tone friendly but his eyes cold, I'd love to hear more about how you and Lucien met. He's been remarkably secretive about the details. Because there were no details. Because the entire relationship was a performance constructed in a week. Arya's mind raced through the cover story. Casino. Roulette table. Organic meeting designed to sound romantic, but vague enough to avoid specific verification. It's embarrassing, Arya said, letting genuine discomfort color her voice. I was having a terrible night. He was kind. One thing led to another. Kind, Marco laughed. That's a word I've never associated with my nephew. Maybe you don't know him as well as you think, Arya replied. The temperature in the conversation dropped several degrees. Isabella's smile sharpened. And maybe you don't know him at all. Before Arya could respond, Lucien's voice cut through the tension like a knife. Talking about me? He'd returned from his father's study, his expression unreadable but his body language radiating controlled aggression. He slipped an arm around Arya's waist with possessive certainty, pulling her against his side. Just getting to know your girlfriend, Marco said. She's interesting. She's mine, Lucien replied, which means she's off limits for your interrogations. Marco's expression hardened. Everything in this family is subject to questioning. You know that. She's not in this family. Yet, Isabella said sweetly, unless this is another one of your temporary arrangements. Lucien's arm tightened around Arya. Dinner's starting. Move. They did, but reluctantly, drifting toward the formal dining room with backward glances that promised the interrogation wasn't over. Once they were alone, Lucien turned Arya to face him. What did they ask you? How we met, how long we've been together, whether I'm special or just convenient. What did you tell them? The cover story, exactly like we practiced. Lucien studied her face, searching for something. You're handling this better than I expected. I've spent 3 years managing a man who'd kill me if I said the wrong thing, Arya replied. Your family's terrifying, but at least they're predictable. Something shifted in Lucien's expression. Recognition, maybe, or respect. Trevor taught you to read danger. Trevor taught me to survive it. Lucien's hand lifted to her face, his thumb tracing her cheekbone with surprising gentleness. After tonight, you won't need those skills anymore. Because Trevor will be handled? Because you'll have options he can't touch. The way Lucien looked at her in that moment made Arya's breath catch. There was something in his eyes that hadn't been there during training, something that looked almost real. Then he stepped back, the distance returning, the mask sliding into place. Dinner, he said. Stay close. Don't drink the wine, and whatever you do, don't let my father corner you alone. The dining room was designed to intimidate. A table long enough to seat 30 people comfortably, set with china that probably cost more per plate than Arya made in a month. Crystal glassware caught the chandelier light like trapped starlight. The walls were lined with portraits of previous Moretti generations, all stern-faced men who looked like they'd built empires on the bones of their enemies. Arya's assigned seat was between Lucien and Sophia, strategic positioning designed to limit her exposure to hostile questioning. Vittorio sat at the head of the table, Lucien's mother to his right. The rest of the family arranged themselves according to some hierarchy Arya didn't fully understand but could feel in the weight of every glance, every positioning choice. Servers appeared with the first course, something delicate and French that Arya couldn't identify. She waited until Lucien picked up his fork before touching hers. Nervous? He asked quietly. Terrified, Arya admitted. Good. Fear keeps you sharp. Across the table, Isabella watched them with calculating interest. So Arya, what do your parents think about you dating Lucien? The question landed like a grenade. Sophia had prepared Arya for this. Dead parents, car accident, emotional territory that shut down follow-up questions. But before Arya could answer, Lucien's hand found hers under the table. A warning, a claim, a promise. Her family situation is complicated, Lucien said, and none of your concern. Everything about you is our concern, Marco interjected from down the table, especially when you bring strangers into our home. Vittorio raised one hand. The entire room went silent. Enough, the patriarch said quietly. The girl is Lucien's guest. She will be treated with respect. The dismissal was absolute. Marco and Isabella both subsided, though their expressions promised the interrogation would continue later. Dinner progressed through multiple courses. Arya ate mechanically, hyper-aware of every word, every gesture, every micro-expression around the table. Conversations flowed in Italian and English, sometimes mid-sentence, excluding her while simultaneously evaluating her reaction to being excluded. She kept her expression pleasant, engaged but not eager, comfortable but not presumptuous. The performance of her life. Halfway through the main course, Vittorio addressed Lucien directly. The Henderson deal requires your signature Monday morning. Your uncle has concerns about the timeline. My uncle has concerns about everything, Lucien replied. Legitimate concerns, Marco said. The property has federal attention. Moving forward could expose us. Or it could diversify our holdings into legitimate real estate development, Lucien countered, which is the entire point of the acquisition. The conversation shifted into business territory, coded language about properties, investments, and operations that Arya recognized as criminal enterprises dressed in corporate terminology. She focused on her food, pretending not to understand while absorbing every word. Sophia leaned close. You're doing well. Just keep breathing. But Arya's attention had snagged on something Vittorio said, a name mentioned casually, dismissed quickly. Trevor Knox. Her entire body went rigid. Lucien noticed immediately. His hand tightened around hers under the table. What's wrong? Your father just mentioned Trevor, Arya whispered. Lucien's expression went cold. He interrupted the business conversation without apology. Why are we discussing Knox? Vittorio's eyebrows rose. Because his father's construction company is involved in the Henderson property dispute. Why? He's Arya's ex-boyfriend, Lucien said flatly. The one I told you to handle. The entire table went silent. Marco leaned back in his chair, his expression shifting from hostility to interest. The cocktail waitress is connected to Daniel Knox's son? Was connected, Lucien said. Past tense. Does she know about the partnership? Isabella asked. Arya's mind raced. Partnership. What partnership? What partnership? She asked, keeping her voice steady despite the fear climbing her throat. Lucien's jaw tightened. It's nothing. It's not nothing, Marco said, clearly enjoying the tension. Trevor Knox's father has been bidding on Moretti construction contracts for 6 months. We've been stringing him along, using his company for money laundering, while planning to burn him once the federal investigation heats up. The room tilted. Trevor's father working with the Morettis, which meant Trevor knew about this family, which meant he'd known exactly who Lucien was when they confronted each other at the casino, which meant everything about that night had been more calculated than Arya realized. You used me, Arya said quietly, turning to face Lucien. Trevor didn't just happen to be at the casino. You knew he'd be there. Lucien's expression remained neutral, but something flickered in his eyes. It's more complicated than that. Uncomplicated. Not here, Lucien said. Yes, here. Arya pulled her hand free from his grip, standing from the table. Training forgotten, performance abandoned. Did you know Trevor would be at the casino that night? The entire Moretti family watched the confrontation like spectators at a particularly entertaining gladiator match. Lucien stood slowly, his height and presence suddenly overwhelming. Sit down. Answer the question. Sit down. Did you fucking know? Arya's voice cracked on the last word. The silence that followed felt like standing in the eye of a hurricane. Then Lucien spoke, his voice low and controlled. Yes, I knew Trevor Knox would be at the Oasis Grand that night. I knew he was your ex-boyfriend. I knew his father was attempting to establish business relationships with my family. And I knew that attaching myself to you would send a message Daniel Knox couldn't ignore. The betrayal hit Arya like a physical blow. So this whole thing, the protection, the money, bringing me here, it's all strategy. It's business, Lucien replied. I'm business. You're an asset. Arya laughed, the sound bitter and broken. I'm an idiot. Again, different suit, same manipulation. She turned toward the door, heels clicking against marble. Lucien caught her arm. Where are you going? Anywhere that's not here. You signed a contract. Sue me. His grip tightened, not painfully, but with absolute certainty. You walk out that door, you lose everything. The money, the protection. Trevor Knox becomes your problem again. Trevor Knox was always my problem, Arya said. You just monetized it. She yanked her arm free and headed for the exit. Behind her, Vittorio's voice carried across the dining room. Let her go, Lucien. If she can't handle the truth about our world, she's useless anyway. Arya made it to the entrance hall before Sophia intercepted her. Wait, Sophia said. Just wait. For what? More lies? For context. Sophia blocked the front door. Yes, Lucien knew about Trevor. Yes, this arrangement serves multiple purposes, but the protection he's offering is real. The money is real. And whether you believe it or not, his concern for your safety is real. His concern for his business interests is real, Arya corrected. They're not mutually exclusive. Footsteps approached from behind. Lucien entered the hall, his expression thunderous. Give us the room, he told Sophia. She left without argument. Lucien and Arya stood 10 feet apart in the marble entrance hall, the distance between them feeling like continents. You want the truth? Lucien said. Fine, here's the truth. Trevor Knox's father is a piece of shit trying to buy his way into my family's operations. Trevor himself is a violent coward who beats women because he's too weak to face real threats. When I learned he was your ex-boyfriend, yes, I saw an opportunity. Attach myself to you, send a message to Daniel Knox that his son's behavior has consequences, establish dominance in ongoing negotiations. Congratulations, Arya said coldly. You won. I'm not finished. Lucien stepped closer. What I didn't anticipate was that you'd be smart enough to adapt, strong enough to survive a week in my world, brave enough to stand in front of my father and hold your ground. I didn't anticipate that every time I touched you during training, it would feel less like performance and more like something I actually wanted. Arya's breath caught. Don't. Don't what? Don't pretend this is real just to manipulate me into staying. Lucien closed the distance between them in 3 strides. His hands framed her face with surprising gentleness, forcing her to meet his eyes. I'm not pretending, he said quietly. That's the problem. Then he kissed her. Not like the practice session in his study. Not like a performance for his family. Like he meant it. Like he was drowning and she was air. Arya's brain screamed this was another manipulation, another strategy, another lie wrapped in desire. But her body responded anyway, her hands fisting in his expensive suit jacket, pulling him closer even as every logical thought told her to push him away. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Lucien rested his forehead against hers. Stay, he said. Finish dinner, collect your money, then decide if you want to walk away. Why should I trust anything you say? Arya whispered. Because if I wanted to manipulate you, I would have lied about Trevor. I would have let you discover the truth later after you were already invested. Instead, my cousin forced my hand and now you know the worst of it. The worst of it, Arya repeated, meaning there's more. Lucien's hands dropped from her face. There's always more in my world. The question is whether you're willing to navigate it. Before Arya could answer, the front door opened. A man she didn't recognize entered. Late 30s, expensive suit, the kind of nervous energy that suggested bad news delivered reluctantly. Mr. Moretti, he said, we have a situation. Lucien's entire demeanor shifted instantly. What kind of situation? Federal agents outside the property line. They're requesting entry to serve a warrant. The color drained from Lucien's face. For what? Racketeering charges. Against you specifically. The world tilted sideways. Sophia reappeared from wherever she'd been waiting. How many agents? 12, plus local law enforcement backup. Vittorio emerged from the dining room, the rest of the family trailing behind him. Everyone stays calm. Lucien, you say nothing without lawyers present. Marco, contact Bernstein immediately. But Arya's attention was caught by something else. A figure standing just outside the still-open front door. Trevor Knox. He stood beside the federal agents, bruised but triumphant, his smile sharp enough to cut glass. Their eyes met across the distance. Trevor raised one hand in a mocking wave. And Arya understood with horrifying clarity that she hadn't escaped anything. She'd walked directly into a trap, one that Trevor and the FBI had been building around the Morettis for months. And she was wearing $75,000 in evidence around her neck, while standing inside a criminal enterprise's headquarters. Lucien followed her gaze, saw Trevor, and went absolutely still. Arya, he said quietly, when did you last speak to Trevor? 2 weeks ago. He called my phone. I didn't answer. Did you tell him about tonight? No, I told no one. No. But even as she said it, Arya's mind raced backward through the week. Her apartment, her phone, her conversations with coworkers at the Oasis. How many opportunities had Trevor had to bug her apartment? To track her movements? To listen to every word? The lead federal agent stepped through the doorway, badge raised. Lucien Moretti, you're under arrest for racketeering, money laundering, and conspiracy to commit murder. You have the right to remain silent. Ah! Chic. Lucien's eyes never left Arya's face. Did you know? The question cut deeper than any physical wound could have. No, Arya whispered. I swear to you, I didn't know. But the doubt in his expression said he didn't believe her. And as federal agents flooded into the Moretti estate, handcuffs ready, evidence bags prepared, Arya realized the truth. It didn't matter if she was innocent. In Lucien's world, proximity to betrayal was the same as guilt. She'd just become the woman who brought the FBI to his door. And there was no coming back from that. The handcuffs clicked around Lucien's wrists with the finality of a coffin closing. Arya stood frozen in the marble entrance hall as federal agents swarmed through the Moretti estate like an invading army. 12 agents minimum, maybe more flooding in through side entrances. They moved with practiced efficiency, securing exits, separating family members, photographing everything. And through it all, Trevor Knox stood just outside the doorway, watching with the satisfied expression of a man who'd finally won. The lead agent, a woman in her 40s with steel gray hair and eyes that had seen every flavor of criminal enterprise, stepped between Lucien and Arya. Arya Vale? Arya's voice came out smaller than she wanted. Yes. Special Agent Caroline Brennan, FBI. I need you to come with me. She's not under arrest, Lucien said, his voice dangerously calm despite the restraints. She has nothing to do with this. Brennan's expression was professionally neutral. That's what we're going to determine. Ms. Vale, this way, please. Two agents flanked Arya, not touching her but making it clear she wasn't being given a choice. She looked back at Lucien as they guided her toward a side room. His obsidian eyes burned with something between fury and betrayal. I didn't know, Arya said again. Lucien, I swear. Save it for the federal agents, Vittorio interrupted from across the hall. The patriarch stood surrounded by his own security detail and what had to be half a dozen lawyers who'd materialized from somewhere. You've done enough damage, girl. The agents led Arya into what looked like a library, floor-to-ceiling bookshelves, leather furniture, the smell of old money and older secrets. They positioned her in a chair facing a desk while Brennan settled across from her. Am I under arrest? Arya asked. Not yet, Brennan replied, but that can change very quickly depending on how cooperative you are. A younger agent, male, early 30s, the kind of clean cut that screamed federal employee, set up a recording device on the desk. Interview with Arya Vale, Saturday, September 14th, 2046 hours. Present are Special Agent Caroline Brennan and Special Agent Marcus Chen. Chen was the one who'd set up the recorder. He stood behind Brennan like a well-dressed shadow. Brennan opened a file folder thick enough to be a novel. How long have you known Lucien Moretti? The question was a trap. Arya could feel it. 4 months, she said, reciting the cover story even though it felt pointless now. That's interesting, Brennan said, because according to the Oasis Grand Casino's employee records, you only requested time off starting last Monday. Before that, you were working full shifts, including weekends. Hard to maintain a 4-month relationship when you're working every Saturday night. Arya's palms went slick with sweat. We made it work. I'm sure you did. Brennan pulled a photograph from the folder and slid it across the desk. Recognize this? The image showed Arya entering Lucien's car outside her apartment building. The timestamp read 8 days ago, Monday morning, the first day of training. That's me, Arya said. First time entering Lucien Moretti's vehicle according to our surveillance, Brennan continued. In fact, that's the first documented contact between you and Mr. Moretti anywhere in our records, which makes your 4-month relationship claim mathematically impossible. Chen spoke for the first time. Unless you're lying, which would make you an accessory to whatever Lucien Moretti hired you to do. Arya's heart hammered against her ribs. I'm not an accessory to anything. Then what are you? Brennan asked. Because from where I'm sitting, you're either a criminal conspirator or a victim being exploited. Help me understand which. The door opened. Trevor Knox entered, followed by another agent. Arya shot to her feet. Get him out of here. Sit down, Ms. Vale, Brennan said. He's not supposed to be in here. He's a cooperating witness, Brennan finished. Mr. Knox has been providing the FBI with information about the Moretti organization for 6 months, information that led directly to tonight's arrests. Trevor's smile was pure poison. Hey, Arya, nice dress. Fuck you, Arya spat. Brennan's expression hardened. Ms. Vale, I strongly suggest you control yourself. But Trevor was already moving closer, ignoring the agents, his attention fixed on Arya like a predator who'd finally cornered wounded prey. You actually thought you could trade up? Thought you could walk into Lucien Moretti's world and what? Become a mob wife? You're a cocktail waitress from a broken home who's one bad shift away from eviction. That's enough, Chen said. Trevor ignored him. I've been watching you for months. Listened to every pathetic conversation you had with your shitty friends about getting away from me, tracked every move you made. When the FBI approached me about the Morettis, I told them about you. Told them Lucien would use you if given the opportunity. And look, I was right. The pieces clicked together in Arya's mind with horrifying clarity. Trevor hadn't just stumbled into being an FBI informant, he'd orchestrated it, used his father's business connections to get close to the Morettis, then sold them out to federal agents while simultaneously positioning Arya as bait. You set me up, Arya whispered. I gave you exactly what you deserved, Trevor replied. You left me. You humiliated me. You thought you could just walk away without consequences. So I made sure your new boyfriend would destroy you the same way you destroyed me. Brennan stood. Mr. Knox, wait outside. I want to watch her fall apart, Trevor said. Outside, now. Two agents physically removed Trevor from the library. His laughter echoed down the hallway. Arya sank back into the chair, her entire body trembling. He bugged my apartment. We know, Brennan said. Illegally. Which means anything he recorded is inadmissible. But it gave us enough probable cause to escalate surveillance on Lucien Moretti, including tonight. I didn't know, Arya said, about any of this. Lucien approached me at the casino, offered me money to pretend to be his girlfriend for one night. I needed the money. I needed Trevor to stop following me. That's it. Brennan studied her. You expect me to believe Lucien Moretti, a man who spent his entire life being groomed to run a criminal empire, randomly selected a cocktail waitress to pose as his girlfriend? It wasn't random, Arya admitted. He knew about Trevor's father working with his family. He saw an opportunity. To use you. Yes. And you let him. For $75,000 and protection from an abusive ex-boyfriend? Yes, I let him. Chen leaned forward. Did Lucien Moretti ever discuss illegal activities in your presence? No. Did you witness any criminal behavior during your time at the estate? No. Did anyone in the Moretti family mention ongoing operations, money laundering, racketeering, or murder? Arya hesitated. The conversation at dinner, the coded business discussion about the Henderson property, the casual mention of using Daniel Knox's company for laundering. Ms. Vale, Brennan said, this is the moment where you decide whether you're a victim or an accomplice. Answer carefully. They talked about business, Arya said. Real estate, construction. I don't know enough about their operations to say whether anything they discussed was illegal. But you suspected, Chen pressed. I suspected Lucien Moretti didn't make his money selling cookies, Arya replied. But suspecting and knowing are different things. Brennan closed the folder. Here's what's going to happen. You're going to provide a full statement detailing everything you observed tonight. Every conversation, every person present, every detail you remember. In exchange, we'll classify you as a witness rather than a suspect. And if I refuse, then we arrest you for conspiracy, hold you as a material witness, and your name gets attached to one of the biggest organized crime prosecutions in Nevada history. Your face will be on every news broadcast. Your life will be dissected by defense attorneys. And every enemy the Moretti family has accumulated over 3 generations will know exactly who brought federal agents to their door. The threat was clear. Cooperate or be destroyed. I need a lawyer, Arya said. You can request one, Brennan replied. But that signals non-cooperation, which means we start treating you like a suspect instead of a victim. Your choice. Arya thought about Lucien's hands framing her face, his confession in the entrance hall, the kiss that had felt terrifyingly real. She thought about Trevor's triumphant smile. She thought about $75,000 that she'd never actually spend. I'll give you my statement, Arya said quietly. The next 2 hours were brutal. Chen recorded everything while Brennan questioned Arya about every detail of the evening. Who sat where during dinner? What was discussed? Which family members seemed closest to Lucien? What security measures she'd observed? Whether she'd seen weapons, documents, anything that could be used as evidence. Arya answered mechanically, her voice flat, her emotions shut down behind walls built from 3 years of surviving Trevor's interrogations. Finally, Brennan shut off the recorder. You're free to go. An agent will drive you home. What about Lucien? Arya asked. What about him? Is he being charged? Brennan's expression was professionally neutral. That's not your concern anymore, Ms. Vale. My advice? Go home. Stay away from the Moretti family. And hope they stay away from you. The drive back to Las Vegas took place in silence. The agent behind the wheel, a woman in her 50s who'd probably seen 1,000 witnesses just like Arya, didn't attempt conversation. Arya stared out the window, watching the desert slide past in the darkness. She'd walked into the Moretti estate 5 hours ago wearing a $75,000 future. She was leaving with nothing except the certainty that she'd just made powerful enemies on both sides of the law. The agent dropped her outside her apartment building at 1:30 in the morning. You'll be contacted if we need additional testimony. Don't leave the state. Then she drove away, leaving Arya standing on the cracked sidewalk in a designer dress and borrowed diamonds. Her apartment looked exactly as she'd left it. Same cheap furniture, same water stain on the ceiling, same locks that wouldn't stop a determined 12-year-old. Arya checked every room anyway, looking for evidence of Trevor's surveillance equipment. She found the first camera behind her bathroom mirror. The second was in a smoke detector. The third was hidden in her bedroom closet, positioned to capture everything. Arya systematically destroyed each one, smashing plastic and circuitry with a fury that had been building for hours. When she finished, her hands were bleeding and her apartment looked like a crime scene. She sat on the floor of her bathroom and finally let herself cry. 3 years of surviving Trevor. 1 week of believing she'd found a way out. 5 hours of watching that escape route explode into federal charges and criminal conspiracies. Her phone buzzed. The burner Sophia had given her. Unknown number. Arya answered. "Hello? You're alive." Sophia's voice was carefully controlled. "Good. Where's Lucien?" "Federal holding facility downtown. His lawyers are negotiating bail." "Is he—" Arya's voice cracked. "Did he say anything about me?" Silence on the other end. Then, "He thinks you were working with Trevor from the beginning." The words hit like a physical blow. "That's not true," Arya said. "I didn't know. I swear I didn't—" "It doesn't matter what's true," Sophia interrupted. "It matters what Lucien believes. And right now he believes the woman he was starting to trust brought the FBI to his father's house. I gave a statement. I told them I didn't see anything illegal." "You talked to federal agents without a lawyer," Sophia said, "which means whatever you said can and will be used against the Moretti family. Do you understand what you've done?" Arya's hands shook. "I didn't have a choice." "Everyone has a choice. You made yours." "They threatened to arrest me. And you folded, like I knew you would." The contempt in Sophia's voice was worse than anger. "What was I supposed to do?" Arya asked. "Refuse to cooperate. Demand a lawyer. Protect yourself and the family that was protecting you. Instead, you gave the FBI exactly what they wanted, an inside witness with fresh observations and no loyalty to complicate her testimony." "I'm not part of your family." "No," Sophia agreed. "You're not, which is why you should have known better than to get involved in the first place." Arya's apartment felt smaller with every passing second. "What happens now?" "Now you disappear. Change your name. Leave Nevada. Pray the Morettis forget you exist and Trevor Knox doesn't decide to finish what he started." "The FBI told me not to leave the state." "The FBI doesn't control you anymore. Neither does Lucien. You're on your own." The line went dead. Arya sat in the silence of her destroyed apartment, surrounded by broken surveillance equipment and the wreckage of a plan that had never been hers to begin with. She'd been a pawn. Trevor's revenge, Lucien's strategy, the FBI's witness, and now, nothing. Her phone buzzed again. Different number. This time she recognized it. Trevor. She almost didn't answer, but rage made the decision for her. "What do you want?" Arya snarled. "Just checking in on my favorite ex-girlfriend," Trevor said, his voice dripping false concern. "Heard you had an interesting evening." "Go to hell." "Already there, baby, but at least I'm taking you with me." Trevor laughed. "Did you really think Lucien Moretti was going to save you? Did you think a man like that was capable of actually caring about a nobody like you?" "You used me," Arya said. "I taught you a lesson. Actions have consequences. You left me. You embarrassed me, so I made sure your replacement would destroy you." "Lucien's not destroyed." "Yet," Trevor said. "But his lawyers are expensive. Federal prosecution is expensive. And when the Moretti empire starts crumbling, guess who they're going to blame?" Arya's blood went cold. "What did you do?" "I made sure the FBI knows all about Lucien's cocktail waitress girlfriend. Made sure they understand you had access to family gatherings, private conversations, insider information. Made sure they see you as a potential cooperating witness, whether you actually cooperate or not." "You're painting a target on my back." "I'm giving you exactly what you deserve," Trevor replied. "You wanted to escape me? Congratulations. Now you get to spend the rest of your life looking over your shoulder, wondering if the Morettis sent someone to handle their loose end problem. Sleep tight, Arya." He hung up. Arya stared at her phone, Trevor's words echoing in her mind. Loose end. That's what she was now. A witness the FBI wanted to keep talking. a liability the Morettis wanted silenced, a target Trevor had painted for both sides. She had maybe 24 hours before someone decided she was too dangerous to leave alive. Arya stood, her decision crystallizing with cold clarity. She couldn't run. The FBI would find her. She couldn't hide. The Morettis had resources she couldn't imagine. She couldn't cooperate further. That would seal her death warrant, which left exactly one option. She had to prove her innocence to Lucien, not to the FBI, not to his family, to him. Because if Lucien believed she'd betrayed him, she was already dead. But if she could convince him of the truth, that Trevor had orchestrated everything, that she'd been used just like Lucien had used her, maybe there was a chance, a small chance, a stupid chance, but the only one she had. Arya changed out of the red dress into jeans and a black t-shirt. She packed a small bag with essentials: cash, phone charger, clean clothes, the fake ID she'd bought 2 years ago when she first tried leaving Trevor. Then she walked out of her apartment, leaving the diamonds on the kitchen counter and the door unlocked. If Trevor wanted to trash the place, let him. She had nothing left to protect. The federal holding facility was a concrete fortress in downtown Las Vegas, designed to house suspects awaiting trial. Arya had looked up the address on her phone during the rideshare to the downtown area. Security was predictably tight: metal detectors, armed guards, the kind of institutional paranoia that came from housing dangerous people. Arya approached the main desk where a corrections officer who looked like she'd stopped caring about humanity sometime in the 90s sat behind bulletproof glass. "I need to see Lucien Moretti," Arya said. The officer didn't look up from her computer. "Visiting hours are 9 to 5, Monday through Friday. It's an emergency." "Everything's an emergency. Come back Monday." Arya pulled out her phone and played a gamble that would either work or get her arrested. "Then I guess I'll call Special Agent Brennan and tell her I have additional information about the Moretti case. I'm sure she'd love to hear about the hidden account numbers Lucien mentioned during dinner." She was bluffing. Lucien hadn't mentioned account numbers. But the officer's eyes narrowed. "Wait here." She made a phone call. Arya couldn't hear the conversation, but the body language suggested she was being taken seriously. 10 minutes later, a different officer, male, younger, less cynical, appeared from a secured door. "Ms. Vale, come with me." They led her through a series of locked corridors into a small room with a table, 2 chairs, and a phone attached to the wall. A glass partition divided the space. 5 minutes, the officer said. "Then you're done." He left. Arya waited, her heart hammering. The door on the other side of the partition opened. Lucien entered wearing an orange jumpsuit that should have made him look diminished, but somehow didn't. His dark hair was messed, his jaw shadowed with stubble, but his obsidian eyes were as sharp and dangerous as ever. He picked up the phone on his side of the partition. Arya picked up hers. They stared at each other through the glass. Finally, Lucien spoke. "They told me a witness wanted to see me. Didn't realize it would be the person who put me here." "I didn't put you here," Arya said. "Trevor did." "Trevor Knox is a useful idiot. You're the one who walked into my father's house wearing a wire." "I wasn't wearing a wire." "Then how did the FBI know about tonight?" Lucien's voice was deadly calm. "How did they know about the family gathering? How did they know exactly when to execute the warrants?" "Trevor bugged my apartment," Arya said. "He's been surveilling me for months. He heard everything. The training, the preparation, the date of the gathering. He gave it all to the FBI." "Convenient story." "It's the truth." Lucien leaned back in his chair, his expression unreadable. "You know what I learned growing up in this family? People will lie with their last breath if they think it'll save them. My own uncle swore on his children's lives he wasn't stealing from us. We found the offshore accounts anyway." "I'm not your uncle," Arya said. "No, you're worse, because I actually started to believe you." The words cut deeper than Arya expected. "The kiss in the entrance hall," Lucien continued. "Was that part of your performance? Keep me distracted while federal agents surrounded the property?" "That kiss was real," Arya said. "Everything I felt, everything I feel, is real. Feelings don't matter in my world. Actions matter. And your actions brought law enforcement to my family's door." Arya's hands tightened around the phone. "I gave the FBI a statement because they threatened to charge me as an accomplice. I told them I didn't witness any illegal activity. I protected you as much as I could." "You talked to them without a lawyer," Lucien said. which means whatever you said is now part of their case file. Congratulations. You're officially a federal witness, whether you meant to be or not. I can fix this. Lucien laughed, the sound cold and empty. You can't fix anything. The damage is done. My father thinks you're a plant. My uncle wants you eliminated. My lawyers are already building a defense that will tear apart every word you said to those agents. I'll recant, Arya said desperately. I'll tell them I lied. You'll do nothing, Lucien interrupted. You'll go home. You'll forget this week ever happened. And you'll pray my family decides you're not worth the effort of killing. Lucien, we're done, Arya. Whatever this was, arrangement, manipulation, mistake, it's over. He stood, phone still pressed to his ear. Arya stood too, her hand pressed against the glass partition. I didn't betray you. Yes, Lucien said quietly. You did. Maybe not intentionally. Maybe you're actually the victim you claim to be. But the result is the same. The FBI has fresh testimony. My family's operations are compromised. And I'm sitting in a federal holding cell because I made the mistake of thinking someone from outside my world could survive inside it. I can survive, Arya said. Let me prove it. How? The question hung between them. Arya's mind raced. She had nothing, no evidence, no leverage, no proof except her word against Trevor's manipulation. Then an idea formed. Desperate, dangerous, probably suicidal, but the only card she had left to play. Trevor told me he's been feeding information to the FBI for 6 months, Arya said, which means he knows things about your family's operations, things he had to learn from somewhere. His father, Lucien said, Daniel Knox has been working with us. But Trevor's not in the construction business. He's never shown interest in his father's work. So how did he get detailed enough information to become a valuable FBI informant? Lucien's expression shifted slightly. What are you suggesting? I'm suggesting Trevor had another source. Someone inside your organization feeding him information. Someone who wanted the FBI investigation to succeed. You're reaching. Am I? Think about tonight. The timing. The coordination. Federal agents don't execute warrants during family gatherings unless they know exactly what they're going to find. Someone told them the whole family would be gathered. Someone told them when to move. Lucien's jaw tightened. Even if that's true, it doesn't change what you did. No, Arya agreed. But it means we both got used. Trevor used me to get to you, and someone in your family used Trevor to get to you. She could see the calculation happening behind Lucien's eyes. I can find out who, Arya said. Trevor thinks I'm destroyed, thinks I'm hiding and terrified. He won't expect me to come at him. I can get him to tell me who his inside source was. And then what? Lucien asked. Then you have leverage against the FBI's star witness. You have proof the investigation was compromised from the inside. You have a defense. And what do you get? Proof I didn't betray you, Arya said. That's all I want. Lucien stared at her through the partition for a long moment. Then, you're asking me to trust you. Yes. After everything that happened tonight. Yes. That's insane. Welcome to my life, Arya replied. Despite everything, Lucien's mouth almost curved into something resembling a smile. If you do this, he said quietly, you're putting yourself in Trevor Knox's crosshairs again. He's already violent, already dangerous, already blames you for every problem in his life. You go at him now, and he'll kill you. He's going to kill me anyway, Arya said. Your family thinks I'm a federal witness. The FBI thinks I'm a useful idiot. Trevor thinks I'm his revenge project. I'm dead no matter what I do. At least this way I go down fighting. Lucien was silent for a long moment. Then, you'll need help. I'll figure it out. No, you won't. Lucien shifted the phone to his other ear. There's a storage unit in Henderson, Unit 217. The code is 4839. Inside is a duffel bag with cash, clean phones, and documentation that will get you access to people who can help. Why would you give me that? Arya asked. Because if you're telling the truth, if Trevor really did set both of us up, then you're the only person outside my family I can trust right now. And if you're lying, the people in that storage unit will handle you before you become a bigger problem. The threat was clear, but so was the opportunity. The unit also has a gun, Lucien continued. Do you know how to use one? Trevor taught me, Arya said bitterly. Said I needed to protect myself. Funny how that worked out. Protect yourself now, Lucien said. Get Trevor to admit who his inside source was. Record it. Bring me proof. Then maybe we both survive this. The officer appeared at Lucien's door. Time's up. Lucien stood. Arya. Yeah? If you're setting me up again, I won't be merciful. You understand? I understand. Good. He hung up the phone. Arya watched him disappear through the secured door, back to a cell and federal charges and a family that wanted her dead. Then she left the facility and caught a rideshare to Henderson. The storage facility was exactly where Lucien said it would be. A warren of identical units protected by chain-link fence and security cameras that had probably stopped working years ago. Unit 217 was in the back corner, away from the main office, surrounded by shadows. Arya punched in the code. The door rolled up with a screech of metal. Inside was exactly what Lucien had promised. A duffel bag sat on the concrete floor, unzipped and waiting. Cash. Maybe 20,000 in mixed bills. 3 burner phones. A passport with her photo, but a different name. And a Glock 9mm with 2 full magazines. Arya picked up the gun, checking the weight, the action, muscle memory from the shooting range Trevor had dragged her to, returning with uncomfortable familiarity. She'd hated those lessons. Hated the noise, the kick, the way Trevor would stand too close and correct her grip while his hands wandered, but she'd learned anyway. Because deep down, even then, she'd known someday she might need to protect herself from him. Arya loaded the gun, chambered around, and tucked it into the waistband of her jeans. Then she pulled out one of the burner phones and dialed Trevor's number from memory. He answered on the 3rd ring, suspicious. Who is this? It's me, Arya said. We need to talk. About what? About your FBI friends. About your inside source in the Moretti family. About what happens when I tell Lucien you've been playing both sides. Silence. Then, you're bluffing. Try me. More silence. Then Trevor's voice changed, lower, more dangerous. Where are you? Somewhere you'll never find me, Arya lied. But I'm willing to make a deal. What kind of deal? I want protection. Real protection. FBI witness protection with a new identity, relocation, everything. In exchange, I'll testify against the Morettis. Tell federal prosecutors everything I saw and heard at the estate. She could hear the smile in Trevor's voice. You're scared. I'm smart. The Morettis want me dead. The FBI wants me talking. You want me to suffer. I'm offering you a way to win completely. All you have to do is put me in touch with your FBI handler. Why would I do that? Because if you don't, I disappear. And when the Morettis eventually get out on bail, I'll make sure they know you had an inside source. I might not know who it is, but they'll tear your father's company apart looking. Either way, you lose. Trevor was quiet for a long moment. Then, you always were smarter than you acted. Survival instinct. Where do you want to meet? I don't. You set up the meeting with your FBI contact. I'll show up, we'll negotiate terms, then I disappear, and you get to watch Lucien Moretti go to prison knowing I helped put him there. How do I know you won't run? Trevor asked. Because running means dying, Arya said, and I'm tired of being afraid. She hung up before he could respond. Then Arya sat in the storage unit surrounded by cash and weapons and false identities, waiting for her phone to ring, betting everything on the desperate hope that Trevor's ego was bigger than his survival instinct, that he'd want to see her broken badly enough to arrange a meeting, that he'd bring proof of his FBI cooperation, and that somewhere in that proof would be the name of his inside source. The phone rang 20 minutes later. Unknown number. Arya answered. Yes? Ms. Vale, this is Special Agent Brennan. Trevor Knox said you wanted to discuss cooperating with our investigation. Arya's hands tightened around the phone. I need protection first. We can arrange that, but I need to know what you're offering. Full testimony about everything I observed at the Moretti estate. Names, faces, conversations, business discussions, everything. In exchange for witness protection, new identity, clean break from Las Vegas and everyone in it. Brennan was quiet. That's a significant request. It's a significant testimony. When can you meet? Tomorrow? Noon? Public location. I'll text you the address. Ms. Vale, if you're wasting our time, I'm not. But I need guarantees. Legal guarantees, in writing. We can provide those, tomorrow at noon. Arya ended the call. Then she texted an address to the number Brennan had called from. A diner on the outskirts of Las Vegas. Public enough to feel safe. Remote enough to avoid crowds. The kind of place where desperate deals got made over bad coffee and worse decisions. Arya spent the night in a motel paid for with Lucien's cash, the gun under her pillow, jumping at every sound. At 11:30 the next morning, she drove to the diner in a rental car purchased with a fake credit card from the storage unit. Trevor was already there. He sat in a booth near the back, wearing expensive sunglasses and the smug expression of someone who thought he'd already won. Arya approached slowly, her hand resting on the gun hidden under her jacket. She slid into the booth across from him. "Hey, baby," Trevor said. "Miss me?" "Where's Brennan?" Arya asked. "Running late. Traffic." Trevor's smile widened. "Which gives us time to catch up." Every instinct screamed at Arya to run, but she'd committed to this path, and there was no turning back now. "How does it feel?" Trevor asked. "Knowing you destroyed the one man who might have actually saved you?" "Lucien didn't save me," Arya said. "He used me, like you used me, like everyone uses me." "Poor victim Arya," Trevor mocked. "Always someone else's fault." "Who's your source?" Arya asked bluntly. "Inside the Moretti family, who's feeding you information?" Trevor's expression shifted. Surprise, then calculation. "Why would I tell you that?" "Because I'm asking nicely. And because if you don't, I'll make sure the Morettis know you had inside help before the FBI finishes their investigation." "You're not in a position to threaten anyone," Trevor said. Arya pulled the gun and laid it on the table between them, her hand still wrapped around the grip. Trevor went very still. "Tell me who your source is," Arya said quietly, "or I put a bullet in your knee right here and let you explain to the FBI why their star witness is screaming in a public diner." The diner was nearly empty. 2 truckers at the counter, an elderly couple 3 booths away. None of them had noticed the gun yet, but they would if Arya fired. Trevor's hands rose slowly. "You won't shoot me." "You beat me for 3 years," Arya replied. "You tracked me, bugged my home, used me as bait in your revenge fantasy. Yes, Trevor, I will absolutely shoot you." Her finger rested on the trigger. Trevor's breathing went shallow. "It was Isabella." The name hit Arya like cold water. "Isabella Moretti," Trevor continued. "Lucien's cousin. She approached my father 6 months ago, said the family was pushing Lucien toward taking over operations, but she thought he was too soft, too modern. She wanted the old guard to maintain control, so she fed me information about Moretti operations. I gave it to the FBI. She got her investigation. I got my revenge. Everyone won." "Except Lucien," Arya said. "Except Lucien," Trevor agreed. The diner door opened. Special Agent Brennan entered, flanked by 2 other agents. But they weren't looking at Trevor. They were looking at Arya, and their hands were resting on their weapons. "Ms. Vale," Brennan said, "put the gun down." Arya's mind raced. This was wrong. The timing was wrong. The setup was wrong. Trevor's smile returned. "Did you really think I'd meet you without backup?" "You called them before I got here," Arya said. "Told them you were unstable, threatening witnesses, armed and dangerous. Thanks for making it easy by actually bringing a gun." The other diner patrons had noticed the federal agents now. The truckers were backing away. The elderly couple was trying to hide under their table. Brennan's weapon was out now, pointed at Arya. "Put the gun on the table and slide it toward me, slowly." Arya's options collapsed to 0. If she put down the gun, she'd be arrested. Federal charges for threatening a witness, her credibility destroyed. No leverage, no proof. No way to save herself or Lucien. If she didn't put down the gun, they'd shoot her. Either way, Trevor won. Arya looked at him across the table. "Isabella Moretti." "What?" Brennan asked. "Trevor's inside source. Isabella Moretti, Lucien's cousin. She's been feeding Trevor information to sabotage her own family." Trevor lunged across the table, trying to grab the gun. Arya jerked back, her chair tipping. The gun clattered to the floor. Federal agents swarmed the booth. Hands grabbed Arya, forcing her face down against the vinyl seat, wrenching her arms behind her back. Handcuffs clicked around her wrists. "You're under arrest for assault with a deadly weapon, threatening a federal witness, and obstruction of justice," Brennan said. Trevor straightened his shirt, his expression triumphant. "Told you she was dangerous." Arya twisted in the agent's grip, trying to see Brennan's face. "Check his phone, check his records. He'll have proof of contact with Isabella Moretti. He'll have—" "She's delusional," Trevor interrupted. "She's been stalking me for months. This is just another episode." Brennan studied Arya. "Do you have evidence of this alleged source?" "His confession," Arya said desperately. "I got him to admit it. Isabella Moretti is sabotaging her own family." "You got him to say words while pointing a gun at him," Brennan replied. "That's called coercion, not evidence." They dragged Arya toward the exit. Trevor watched her go, his smile sharp enough to draw blood. "Enjoy federal prison, Arya," he called out. "I hear it's nicer than county lockup, better food." Arya stopped fighting. Because he was right. She'd gambled everything on a desperate plan, and she'd lost. The federal agents loaded her into a vehicle. No more questions, no more chances, just handcuffs and silence and the certain knowledge that she'd just condemned herself while failing to save Lucien. The vehicle pulled away from the diner. Through the window, Arya watched Trevor Knox walk to his car, still smiling, still winning, still destroying her even from a distance. And somewhere in a federal holding cell, Lucien Moretti would hear about her arrest and know with absolute certainty that she'd betrayed him. Again. The game was over, and Arya had become exactly what everyone believed she was: a liability, a witness, a loose end that needed to be cut. The federal holding cell smelled like disinfectant and desperation. Arya sat on a metal bench bolted to concrete walls, her wrists still aching from the handcuffs they'd finally removed 20 minutes ago. The orange jumpsuit they'd given her was 2 sizes too large, the fabric stiff and scratchy against her skin. She'd been processed like cargo: fingerprints, photographs, medical evaluation, property confiscated, including the burner phone, the fake passport, and every dollar of Lucien's cash. The gun had earned her additional charges. Now she waited in a 6x8 cell with a toilet that didn't fully flush and a light that never turned off, alone. Exactly where Trevor wanted her. Footsteps approached from down the corridor. Multiple people. Official cadence. The cell door opened. Special Agent Brennan entered, followed by Agent Chen and a man Arya didn't recognize. Late 50s, expensive suit, the kind of lawyer who charged by the minute and won cases most people considered unwinnable. "Ms. Vale," Brennan said, "this is Robert Kasner. He's been retained to represent you." Arya looked at the lawyer. "By who?" "A concerned party who wishes to remain anonymous," Kasner replied. His voice was smooth, practiced, designed to calm panicking clients. "I've reviewed your charges: assault with a deadly weapon, threatening a federal witness, obstruction of justice. Under normal circumstances, you'd be looking at significant prison time." "But these aren't normal circumstances," Arya said. "No, they're not." Kasner set his briefcase on the bench beside her. "Because Trevor Knox's story has some interesting inconsistencies. He claims you've been stalking him for months, but casino security footage shows he approached you at the Oasis Grand, not the other way around. He claims you're delusional, but the surveillance equipment found in your apartment suggests ongoing harassment from his end." Arya's heart rate spiked. "You found the cameras." "What's left of them?" Kasner said. "Smashed to pieces. But the serial numbers are traceable. Purchased by Trevor Knox 6 months ago using his father's company credit card." Brennan's expression was carefully neutral. "Mr. Knox has been asked to provide clarification on those purchases." "I'm sure he has a perfectly reasonable explanation," Kasner said, with a tone that suggested he didn't believe that for a second. However, combined with Ms. Vale's statement about being threatened and coerced, there's enough reasonable doubt to make prosecution complicated. "What are you offering?" Arya asked. "The charges against you will be reduced to reckless endangerment with a deadly weapon," Kasner said. "You'll plead guilty, accept probation and mandatory counseling, and agree to testify truthfully about your interactions with the Moretti family if called as a witness. And if I refuse? Then you go to trial, face maximum sentencing, and spend the next 5 to 7 years in federal prison while Trevor Knox walks free and the Moretti family forgets you exist." The trap was obvious. Plead guilty and become the FBI's witness. or fight and lose everything. I want to talk to Lucien, Arya said. Brennan shook her head. That's not possible. Mr. Moretti is a defendant in an ongoing federal investigation. Contact with potential witnesses is prohibited. Then I want to talk to Sophia Chen. Also prohibited. So I'm completely isolated, Arya said. You're being protected, Brennan corrected, from yourself and from people who might want to influence your testimony. Arya looked at Kasner. Who hired you? I can't disclose that information. Was it Lucien? I can't disclose that information, Kasner repeated. Which was answer enough. Lucien had sent her a lawyer, despite believing she'd betrayed him, despite the federal charges, despite everything. Which meant he either still had some measure of trust in her, or he was making sure she stayed controlled and silent. I need to think, Arya said. You have 24 hours, Kasner replied. After that, the offer expires and the federal prosecutor files formal charges. Think carefully, Ms. Vale. Your next decision determines whether you have a future or just a very long prison sentence. They left. The cell door locked behind them with metallic finality. Arya lay down on the metal bench, staring at the ceiling, her mind racing through impossible options. She'd tried to get Trevor's confession, failed. She'd tried to expose Isabella Moretti, failed. She'd tried to prove her innocence to Lucien, failed. Now she had one move left. Accept the plea deal. Become the witness the FBI wanted. Testify against the Morettis if called. And hope Lucien understood she was doing it to survive, not to destroy him. It was a terrible plan, but it was the only one she had. 20 hours later, Kasner returned with paperwork. Arya signed everything. The charges were reduced, the plea was entered, the probation terms were established, and just like that, she was free. Sort of. They released her at 6 in the morning wearing the same clothes she'd been arrested in, her belongings returned except for the gun and the fake passport. A federal ankle monitor was locked around her left leg, tracking her movements, ensuring compliance. Don't leave Clark County, Brennan told her at the release desk. Check in with your probation officer every Monday. And Ms. Vale, if the Moretti family contacts you, you report it immediately. Understood? Understood, Arya lied. She walked out of the federal building into the early morning heat, Las Vegas already awake and moving despite the hour. A black car waited at the curb, the same car that had picked her up for training, the same driver. He opened the rear door without speaking. Arya hesitated. Getting into that car meant stepping back into Lucien's world, meant accepting that whatever came next, she was committed. But standing on the sidewalk meant Trevor won completely, and Arya was done losing. She got in the car. The driver pulled away from the curb, heading west out of downtown Las Vegas. Where are we going? Arya asked. Somewhere you can talk freely, the driver replied. They drove for 30 minutes, deep into the desert where the city lights faded and the landscape turned hostile. The car finally stopped at an abandoned construction site, half-built structures that had been left to decay when the economy collapsed years ago. Sophia waited beside a second vehicle, wearing designer sunglasses and an expression that could freeze blood. The driver opened Arya's door. She stepped out into the heat, her ankle monitor feeling heavier with every step. Sophia looked her over with clinical assessment. You're alive. Surprising. I'm hard to kill, Arya said. We'll see. Sophia gestured toward the abandoned buildings. Walk with me. They moved away from the vehicles, boots crunching against gravel and broken concrete. The construction site was a graveyard of abandoned ambition, steel frames rusting under the sun, windows that would never have glass, walls that would never be finished. Lucien sent you the lawyer, Sophia said. It wasn't a question. I assumed. He also sent me to deliver a message. The family thinks you're a federal informant. Vittorio wants you eliminated before you can testify. Marco has already put a price on your head. Isabella is pushing for immediate action. Arya's blood went cold. How much? $50,000, payable upon confirmation of death. The same amount as the first payment Lucien had promised her. The irony was acidic. Lucien's holding them off, Sophia continued. Barely. He's convinced them that killing a federal witness would bring more heat than letting the investigation play out. But that protection is temporary. The moment you become more dangerous alive than dead, someone will pull the trigger. So I'm on borrowed time, Arya said. We're all on borrowed time. The question is what you do with yours. They stopped beside a partially completed building, its shadow offering brief relief from the sun. Trevor Knox confessed to me, Arya said. Told me Isabella Moretti has been feeding him information. She's the inside source. She's sabotaging her own family to prevent Lucien from taking control. Sophia's expression didn't change. Did you record it? No, he grabbed for my gun before I could. The FBI arrested me. The confession is worthless. Not worthless. Confirmation. Sophia pulled off her sunglasses, and for the first time since Arya had met her, genuine emotion flickered in her eyes. Lucien suspected Isabella for months, but suspicion isn't proof. Family politics require evidence before accusations can be made. So get the evidence, Arya said. Search her communications, follow her movements. You have the resources. We have federal surveillance, Sophia corrected. Every phone call monitored, every bank transaction flagged. The investigation has made traditional intelligence gathering impossible. Then what do you want from me? Sophia stepped closer, her voice dropping. I want you to do what you do best. Survive by any means necessary. You got Trevor to confess once. Do it again, this time with recording equipment that will actually hold up. He's not going to fall for the same trick twice, Arya said. No, which is why you're going to give him something he wants more than revenge. What? Lucien Moretti, completely destroyed, reputation ruined, family empire collapsed, everything Trevor's been working toward. Arya's stomach dropped. You want me to actually betray Lucien? I want you to make Trevor believe you're betraying Lucien, Sophia corrected. Convince him you'll testify against the family. Feed him information, carefully crafted misinformation that we'll provide. Earn his trust. And when he's comfortable, when he thinks he's won, get him to tell you everything about Isabella. And if he doesn't? Then we're back to option one. Someone puts a bullet in your head and the Moretti family moves forward without answers. The desert heat pressed down like a physical weight. Arya looked out across the abandoned construction site, seeing her future in the unfinished buildings. Lucien knows about this plan? She asked. It was his idea. Something twisted in Arya's chest. He's using me again. He's giving you a chance to prove yourself, Sophia said. The family wants you dead. The FBI wants you talking. Trevor wants you destroyed. Lucien's offering you a way to survive while taking down the people trying to kill you. That's more than most people in your position get. It's a suicide mission. It's the only mission you have. Sophia pulled a small device from her pocket, a recording pen, expensive and professional grade. This record's for up to 12 hours. Quality good enough for court. Get Trevor talking about Isabella. Get him to admit the conspiracy. Then bring us the recording. And if I can't? Sophia's expression went cold. Then you should probably leave Nevada while you still can. She walked back toward the vehicles, leaving Arya alone among the ruins. The driver appeared at Arya's elbow. Where can I take you? Arya looked at the recording pen in her hand. One last play. One final gamble. Convince Trevor she'd completely broken. Feed him lies wrapped in truth. Record his confession about Isabella, or die trying. Take me home, Arya said. Her apartment looked exactly as she'd left it. Destroyed surveillance equipment still scattered across the floor. Unwashed dishes in the sink. The bed unmade from the morning she'd prepared for the Moretti family gathering. 3 days ago. It felt like 3 years. Arya cleaned mechanically, sweeping up the broken cameras, wiping down surfaces, trying to reclaim some sense of control in a life that had spiraled completely off the rails. Her real phone, the one the FBI had returned, buzzed with missed messages. 17 texts from unknown numbers. Probably reporters who'd gotten her information from court records. 3 voicemails from her former supervisor at the Oasis Grand, fired most likely. And 1 message from a number she recognized. Trevor. We need to talk. I can help you. Meet me. The audacity was breathtaking. He'd gotten her arrested, put a target on her back, destroyed any chance she had at a normal life. And now he was offering help. Arya stared at the message, her mind racing. This was the opening Sophia wanted. The chance to get close to Trevor, to record his confession, to expose Isabella. Or it was a trap designed to finish what he'd started. Either way, there was only one response. Arya typed carefully. Where and when? The reply came within seconds. Tonight, 9 p.m. The construction site off Highway 95. Come alone. The same area where Sophia had just met her. Coincidence or surveillance? Arya couldn't tell anymore. She spent the rest of the day preparing. Shower, clean clothes, the recording pen hidden in her jacket pocket, activated and tested. The ankle monitor would track her movements, but the FBI expected her to be in Las Vegas. The construction site was technically within Clark County limits. At 8:30, Arya called a rideshare. The driver was a college kid who spent the entire trip talking about his engineering classes and his girlfriend's drama. Arya made encouraging sounds while her mind mapped escape routes and calculated odds of survival. The construction site looked different at night. The abandoned buildings became skeletal shadows against the star-filled sky. No city lights this far out, just desert darkness and the distant sound of highway traffic. Trevor's car was already there. He leaned against the hood, illuminated by headlights, wearing expensive clothes and that same triumphant smile. Arya approached slowly, every nerve screaming danger. "You came," Trevor said. "I wasn't sure you would." "You said you could help me," Arya replied. "I'm listening." Trevor pushed off the car, circling her like a predator evaluating prey. "You look terrible. Federal custody doesn't agree with you." "Neither does betrayal." "Betrayal?" Trevor laughed. "You left me, remember? 3 years together, and you just walked out like I meant nothing." "You beat me," Arya said flatly. "I left because staying meant dying. I never would have killed you." "You would have eventually. We both know it." Trevor stopped circling, his expression shifting to something almost genuine. "Maybe. But at least I was honest about what I was. Lucien Moretti pretended to be your savior while using you as a pawn. I gave you the truth. He gave you lies wrapped in expensive jewelry." "Is that why you set me up?" Arya asked. "Truth? I set you up because you needed to learn a lesson. Actions have consequences. You can't just walk away from people without paying a price." The recording pen was capturing everything. Arya needed to steer the conversation toward Isabella. "The FBI thinks I'm going to testify against the Morettis," Arya said. "They've offered me witness protection, new identity, fresh start." Trevor's eyes narrowed. "Are you going to take it?" "I don't know. That's why I'm here. You said you could help me." "I can do better than help you," Trevor said. "I can make you rich." He pulled a manila envelope from his car and handed it to Arya. Inside were photographs, financial documents, wire transfer records, all showing payments from Isabella Moretti to Trevor Knox's offshore accounts. "Insurance," Trevor explained, "in case the FBI ever turned on me. Proof that I wasn't just some random informant. I had a source. A good one." Arya's hands trembled as she flipped through the documents. "Isabella paid you directly. $50,000 a month for 6 months. $300,000 to destroy her cousin's future. She hates Lucien, thinks he's too soft, too modern, too willing to legitimize the family business. She wants the old ways maintained, violence and fear." "And you gave her what she wanted," Arya said. "I gave her information. She gave me money. The FBI gave me protection. Everyone won except Lucien." "Why are you showing me this?" Trevor stepped closer, his breath warm against her face. "Because I want you to understand something. I won. Completely. Lucien's facing federal charges. His family's operations are compromised. His reputation is destroyed, and the woman he was falling for is wearing a federal ankle monitor." His hand touched the device locked around her leg. Arya forced herself not to flinch. "But I'm not satisfied," Trevor continued. "I want to watch him lose everything. His freedom, his family's empire, his future. And you're going to help me do it." "How?" "Testify against him. Give the FBI everything you observed, every conversation, every detail. In exchange, I'll give you these documents. Proof that Isabella was behind the investigation. You can use them as leverage. Negotiate a better deal with the prosecutors. Maybe even get your charges dropped completely." The offer was poison wrapped in gold. Testify and betray Lucien completely, or refuse and Trevor would destroy the only evidence of Isabella's involvement. "What happens to Isabella if I expose her?" Arya asked. "The Morettis will tear her apart," Trevor said. "Family betrayal is the ultimate sin in their world. She'll be lucky if Vittorio only disowns her. More likely, she disappears into the desert and no one asks questions. And you're fine with that, Arya said. Even though she's been paying you. She was useful. Now she's a liability. I don't have loyalty to anyone except myself. The recording pen was getting all of this. Trevor's confession, the payment records, the conspiracy, everything Sophia needed, everything Lucien needed. But Arya had to keep him talking, make sure the recording was complete. Why do you hate Lucien so much? She asked. He's just another criminal. There are hundreds like him in Vegas. Trevor's expression darkened. Because he's everything I'm not. Rich, powerful, respected. Women look at him and see strength. They look at me and see someone trying too hard. So this is about ego. This is about justice, Trevor snapped. Men like Lucien Moretti coast through life on family, money, and fear. They don't work for anything, don't struggle, don't earn their power. It's handed to them by previous generations of thugs and murderers. I want him to know what it's like to lose, to be powerless, to watch everything he took for granted get ripped away. Like you did to me, Arya said quietly. Trevor's smile returned. Exactly like I did to you. You left me. I destroyed your escape route. You chose Lucien. I destroyed him too. It's poetic. The recording had been running for almost 20 minutes now. More than enough for federal prosecutors. More than enough for the Moretti family. Arya slipped her hand into her jacket, fingers finding the pen. I'll testify, she said. Give me the documents and I'll tell the FBI everything. Trevor handed her the envelope. Smart choice. But I need something else, Arya added. What? I need to know you won't come after me again. After this is over. After Lucien goes to prison. I need to know I'm free of you. Trevor considered this. Testify. Destroy Lucien. Disappear into witness protection, and I'll never contact you again. Promise? I promise, Trevor said. Then he grabbed her. His hands locked around her throat before Arya could react, slamming her back against his car with brutal force. Did you really think I'd let you go? Trevor hissed. Did you think I'd just walk away after everything you put me through? Arya clawed at his hands, gasping for air. You're going to testify, Trevor continued, his grip tightening. But first, you're going to remember who you belong to, who you'll always belong to. Arya's vision blurred, her lungs burned. The recording pen was still in her pocket, capturing Trevor's assault, capturing her murder. With the last of her strength, Arya drove her knee up into Trevor's groin. He released her with a howl of pain, stumbling backward. Arya collapsed against the car, gasping, her throat on fire. Trevor recovered faster than she expected, his face twisted with rage. You bitch! The gunshot cut through the night air. Trevor froze, then looked down at his chest where blood was spreading across his expensive shirt. He dropped to his knees, confusion replacing anger on his face. Arya's eyes tracked the direction of the gunshot. Lucien Moretti stood 20 feet away, lowering a smoking gun, his expression cold as winter. He wasn't alone. Sophia emerged from behind one of the abandoned buildings. Two men Arya recognized as Moretti security flanked her. They'd been watching the entire time, recording everything, waiting for Trevor to confess, waiting for him to attack, giving Lucien legal justification for what came next. Trevor collapsed onto the gravel, blood pooling beneath him. You can't. Self-defense, Lucien said calmly. You were assaulting a woman under my protection. I intervened. Nevada law is very clear on this. He walked to Arya, his gun still in hand, his eyes scanning her neck where Trevor's fingers had left marks. Are you hurt? Lucien asked quietly. Arya couldn't speak. Her throat was too damaged. She shook her head. Lucien's jaw tightened. He turned to Sophia. Call the lawyer, call the police, and make sure the recording equipment captured everything. Already done, Sophia replied. Trevor was still alive, barely, his breathing ragged and wet. You killed me. Not yet, Lucien said. He knelt beside Trevor, his voice dropping to a whisper that somehow carried across the desert silence. But you're going to die knowing you lost. The FBI has Isabella's payment records. They have your confession about conspiring with a Moretti family member. They have video of you assaulting Arya. Everything you built collapses tonight. Isabella, Trevor coughed blood, will kill you. Isabella will be handled by my father, Lucien replied. Family business. Trevor's eyes found Arya. You set me up. Arya pulled the recording pen from her pocket and held it up so he could see. Understanding dawned in Trevor's eyes. Then rage. Then nothing. He stopped breathing. Sirens wailed in the distance. Someone had called the police, probably Sophia, making sure everything was documented properly. Lucien stood, holstering his weapon. The story is simple. Trevor Knox contacted you, threatened you. You came here to meet him against your better judgment. I followed because I was concerned for your safety. I witnessed him assaulting you. I intervened with lethal force. Self-defense and defense of another. Clean. Nothing about this is clean, Arya whispered, her voice hoarse. No, Lucien agreed, but it's legal, which is all that matters. The police arrived with an ambulance. Paramedics confirmed Trevor was dead. Officers took statements. Crime scene investigators photographed everything. Arya sat in the back of an ambulance while a medic examined her throat, applying cold compresses to the bruising. Lucien stood nearby, talking to a detective who looked like he'd seen this scenario play out 100 times. Nevada justice. Wealthy man shoots someone threatening a woman. Self-defense. Paperwork filed. Case closed. Hours passed. Finally, the detective released them both. Don't leave the state, he told Lucien. We'll need additional statements. Of course, Lucien replied. Sophia drove them back to Las Vegas in silence. Arya in the passenger seat, Lucien in the back, the desert darkness absolute outside the windows. They didn't go to Arya's apartment. Instead, Sophia pulled up to a private airfield on the outskirts of the city. A small jet waited on the tarmac, engines running. Where are we going? Arya asked. Somewhere the FBI can't monitor you while we clean up this mess, Lucia said. Somewhere Isabella can't reach you before my father handles her. Somewhere safe. Nowhere safe, Arya replied. No, but some places are safer than others. He helped her out of the car, his hand gentle on her arm. They boarded the jet together. Sophia stayed behind, presumably to manage the fallout. The plane took off, heading south, destination unknown. Arya sat across from Lucien in the cabin, finally allowing herself to process everything. Trevor was dead. Isabella would be exposed. The FBI's case was compromised. And somehow, Arya was still alive. Thank you, she said quietly, for coming, for stopping him. Lucien's obsidian eyes met hers. I should have killed him the first night at the casino. Would have saved us both a lot of trouble. Why didn't you? Because I thought legal intimidation would be enough. I underestimated how obsessed he was with destroying you. That was my mistake. Your mistake almost got me killed. I know. Lucien leaned forward, his elbows on his knees. I've made a lot of mistakes with you, Arya. Used you, doubted you, put you in danger. I can't undo any of that. But I can make sure no one else hurts you, starting now. The plane leveled off at cruising altitude. Arya touched her bruised throat, wincing. What happens when we land? We disappear for a while. Let my lawyers handle the FBI investigation. Let my father deal with Isabella. When the dust settles, we figure out what comes next. And if the dust never settles, Lucien's expression was unreadable. Then we keep running. Together. The word together hung in the air between them. Not employer and employee. Not manipulator and victim. Something else. Something neither of them had words for yet. Arya closed her eyes, exhaustion finally catching up with her body. She'd survived Trevor Knox. She'd exposed Isabella Moretti. She'd earned Lucien's trust. But somewhere behind them, in the wreckage of federal investigations and family conspiracies, consequences were building like a storm. And when that storm finally broke, Arya wasn't sure if any of them would survive it. The jet flew through the darkness, carrying them toward an uncertain future. Together. For better or worse. The jet landed in Mexico 3 hours before dawn. Not tourist Mexico with its resorts and beaches. This was cartel territory. A private airstrip carved into mountains where questions weren't asked and money talked louder than laws. Arya followed Lucien down the stairs onto cracked tarmac, the humid air thick enough to taste. 2 vehicles waited in the darkness, engines running, drivers whose faces she couldn't see in the shadows. Where are we? Arya asked, her voice still hoarse from Trevor's assault. Somewhere the FBI has no jurisdiction, Lucien replied. Somewhere my family has arrangements that predate most governments. They drove for an hour along roads that barely qualified as such, climbing into hills covered in dense vegetation. The safe house, if it could be called that, was a compound built into the mountainside. Stone walls, reinforced windows, the kind of place designed to withstand sieges. Inside was surprisingly comfortable. Modern furniture, working electricity, a kitchen stocked with food that suggested someone had prepared for their arrival. "How long are we staying?" Arya asked. Lucien set his phone on the counter, the screen already lighting up with encrypted messages. "Until it's safe to go back. Could be days, could be weeks. And then what? Then we find out if there's anything left of my family's empire to go back to." He poured 2 glasses of water from a filtered pitcher, handing one to Arya. Their fingers touched briefly during the exchange. Neither of them pulled away immediately. "You saved my life tonight," Arya said quietly. "You saved mine first," Lucien replied. "Getting Trevor to confess. Recording Isabella's involvement. You did what my entire security team couldn't do. I almost got strangled doing it. But you didn't run. Didn't break. Didn't quit." Lucien's obsidian eyes studied her with something that looked almost like respect. "Most people would have taken the first escape route and never looked back." "I tried that 3 years ago with Trevor," Arya said. "Learned the hard way that running just means dying tired." Lucien's phone buzzed. He glanced at the screen, his expression hardening. "Sophia," he said, "Isabella's been arrested. Federal agents picked her up 2 hours ago. The payment records and Trevor's confession were enough for conspiracy charges." "How's your father taking it?" "About as well as you'd expect when he learns his niece has been sabotaging the family for 6 months. Lucien's jaw tightened. "He wants her handled internally. The lawyers are negotiating to have her transferred to private custody pending trial." Arya understood what handled internally meant in the Moretti world. Isabella wouldn't survive the week. "Does that bother you?" she asked. "Knowing your family will kill her?" Lucien was quiet for a long moment. "It bothers me that she chose betrayal over loyalty, that she put the entire organization at risk because she disagreed with the direction I wanted to take us. The rest is just consequences." "Cold way to think about family." "It's the only way to think about family in my world." Lucien set his phone down. "You don't get to choose blood, but you do get to choose whether that blood is worth protecting. Isabella made her choice. Now she lives with it, or doesn't." He walked to the windows overlooking the valley below. Lights twinkled in the distance. Some village or town going about its business, oblivious to the criminals hiding in the hills. Arya joined him at the window, her reflection ghosting across the glass beside his. "What did you mean earlier?" she asked. "When you said I saved your life first?" "The FBI's case was built on the assumption that my family operates purely through violence and intimidation," Lucien said. "No legitimate business, no legal operations, just crime wrapped in expensive suits. Your testimony, the fact that you witnessed normal business discussions, family gatherings, conversations about real estate and construction, it complicates their narrative, makes prosecution harder. So I'm useful again. You were always useful. That was never the question." "Then what was the question?" Lucien turned to face her fully. "Whether I could trust you. Whether you were working with Trevor from the beginning. Whether everything between us was performance or something real." "And now?" Arya asked. "Now I know Trevor orchestrated everything. I know you were caught in the middle of a revenge plot you didn't understand. I know you risked your life to expose Isabella when you could have just disappeared into witness protection." "That doesn't answer my question." Lucien's hand lifted to her face, his thumb tracing the bruises on her throat with surprising gentleness. "I trust you, Arya, which is either the smartest decision I've made or the one that will eventually destroy me." "Trusting people doesn't destroy you, Schatz," Arya said. "Using them does." "Then I guess we're both learning new lessons." He kissed her. Not like the performance in front of his family. Not like the desperate moment in the entrance hall before the FBI raid. Like a man who'd spent his entire life building walls and had finally found someone worth letting past them. Arya kissed him back, her hands fisting in his shirt, pulling him closer. Every logical thought screamed this was complicated, messy, dangerous. That Lucien Moretti was still a criminal who'd used her as a pawn. That she was still wearing a federal ankle monitor and facing probation. But logic had stopped mattering somewhere between Trevor's death and this moment. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Lucien rested his forehead against hers. "What do we do now?" Arya whispered. "We survive," Lucien said. "Together. Then we figure out the rest." The next 3 days existed outside normal time. They stayed in the compound while Lucien's lawyers negotiated with federal prosecutors. The case against the Moretti family was crumbling. Isabella's betrayal had contaminated evidence, Trevor's death had eliminated a key witness, and Arya's testimony created reasonable doubt about the scope of illegal operations. Vittorio was released on bail. Marco followed 24 hours later. The racketeering charges remained, but the murder conspiracy accusations were quietly dropped for lack of evidence. Isabella disappeared. Officially, she'd been transferred to a psychiatric facility for evaluation. Unofficially, she'd been taken to a location no federal agent would ever find. Sophia called with updates twice daily. The investigation was shifting focus. The FBI was looking for new witnesses, new evidence, new angles of attack. But the immediate crisis had passed. On the fourth morning, Lucien found Arya on the compound's balcony watching the sunrise paint the valley in shades of gold and red. "We can go back," he said, "if you want to." Arya didn't turn around. Back to what? My apartment with its broken locks? My job at a casino that fired me? My life that Trevor spent 3 years destroying? Back to a choice, Lucien replied. You can take the witness protection deal, disappear. Start over somewhere Trevor's ghost can't reach you and my family's problems aren't yours. Or you stay, not as an employee, not as a strategy, as someone who understands my world and chooses to be part of it anyway. Arya finally turned to face him. What would that look like? Complicated, dangerous, under constant federal surveillance. My family will always question your loyalty. My enemies will see you as leverage. Your life will never be normal again. It was never normal to begin with, Arya said. No, but it could be different, better, if you're willing to build something new instead of running from what's broken. The sun cleared the mountains, flooding the valley with light. Arya thought about the cocktail waitress who'd begged a stranger to pretend to love her for 5 minutes, about 3 years of bruises and lies, about a week of transformation and federal charges, about Trevor's body bleeding out on desert gravel. She thought about Lucien's hands framing her face, his confession in the holding facility, his gun firing to protect her. She thought about trust earned through violence and survival. I'm not running anymore, Arya said. From Trevor, from you, from whatever comes next. Lucien's expression shifted, relief mixed with something deeper. Then we do this right. No more lies. No more manipulation. Partners. Partners? Arya agreed. Starting with honesty, Lucien said. I'm not a good man, Arya. I've killed people, ordered violence, built wealth on suffering. My family's empire is soaked in blood going back 3 generations. That doesn't change because I'm trying to legitimize our operations. I know what you are, Arya replied. I've known since the first night at the casino. I saw how your security moved, how dealers reacted, how Trevor's face went white when he heard your name. I'm not naive. Then why stay? Because you shot the man who was strangling me, Arya said. Because you sent me a lawyer when you thought I'd betrayed you. Because somewhere under all the violence and control, you're trying to be something different than what your father built. And I want to see if that's actually possible. It might not be, Lucien warned. Then we'll fail together. They flew back to Las Vegas that afternoon. The city looked the same, neon and desert heat, tourists and desperation, fortunes won and lost on the turn of a card. But Arya saw it differently now. Not as a trap, as a battlefield where she'd survived when everyone expected her to break. Lucien's penthouse became her home, not because she had nowhere else to go, because she chose to be there. The federal investigation dragged on for months. Depositions, court appearances, endless questions from prosecutors trying to salvage a case that had imploded from internal corruption. Arya testified truthfully about what she'd observed at the Moretti estate. Business discussions, family dynamics, nothing explicitly illegal. Her probation was reduced for cooperation. The ankle monitor came off after 90 days. Trevor's father, Daniel Knox, was indicted for money laundering and tax evasion. His construction company collapsed within weeks. The name Knox disappeared from Las Vegas business circles like it had never existed. Isabella Moretti was never seen again. Officially, she'd fled the country to avoid prosecution. The desert kept better secrets than official records. Vittorio Moretti stepped down as family patriarch 6 months after the FBI raid, citing health concerns. Lucien took control of operations with a mandate to transform the organization. Casinos were sold to legitimate buyers. Construction contracts were renegotiated through transparent bidding. Money laundering operations were systematically dismantled. The Moretti empire slowly, painfully, became something that could survive in daylight. It wasn't clean. It wasn't easy. People who'd built careers on violence and fear didn't surrender power without consequences. But Lucien pushed forward anyway, with Arya beside him. She learned the business from the inside. Not the illegal operations, those were being phased out, but the legitimate enterprises, real estate development, hotel management, investment portfolios. She was good at it, better than the MBA graduates Vittorio had hired over the years, because Arya understood survival at a fundamental level, understood how to read people, navigate danger, make decisions when every option was terrible. Skills learned from 3 years with Trevor Knox, put to use building something better. 18 months after the FBI raid, Lucien took Arya back to the Oasis Grand Casino, the same roulette table where they'd met, the same dealer who'd watched their first conversation. But everything else was different. Arya wore a dress that cost more than she used to make in 6 months. Diamonds that were hers, not borrowed. Confidence earned through survival rather than performance. Lucien played roulette with the same controlled calm, placing chips on black like he had that first night. The wheel spun. Black. His chips doubled. He pushed the entire stack toward Arya. "For you." "I don't need your money anymore," Arya said. "I know. Take it anyway." She did. Then donated the entire amount to a domestic violence shelter the next morning. One of many charities the Moretti Foundation had started funding under Arya's direction. Turns out blood money could be cleaned. Not by hiding it. By spending it on people who needed help more than mobsters needed yachts. 2 years after Trevor's death, Arya stood in front of a mirror in Lucien's penthouse, adjusting a white dress. Not a wedding dress. They weren't ready for that level of commitment, maybe never would be. But an engagement dress. Because Lucien had asked, and Arya had said yes. Not because she needed saving, not because she needed security, because she wanted to build something with him that wasn't based on survival or strategy, something real. Sophia knocked on the bedroom door. "Everyone's waiting." The engagement party was small, immediate family only. Vittorio, looking older but more peaceful than he'd been in decades. A handful of cousins who'd survived the family's transformation. Business associates who'd proven their loyalty during the federal investigation. And one surprise guest. Special Agent Brennan stood near the bar, nursing a glass of wine, looking deeply uncomfortable in civilian clothes. Arya approached slowly. "Didn't expect to see you here." "Lucien invited me," Brennan replied. "Said it was important to maintain good relationships with law enforcement." "That's one way to put it." Brennan's expression softened slightly. "For what it's worth, you did the right thing. Cooperating, testifying. Most people in your position would have run or folded." "I tried both," Arya said. "Neither worked." "No, you fought. There's a difference." Brennan set down her wine glass. The FBI closed the investigation into the Moretti family last month. Insufficient evidence to prosecute under current leadership. Lucien's transformation of operations was thorough. He's good at being thorough. He's good at a lot of things, Brennan agreed, including picking partners who make him better than he'd be alone. That's rare. She excused herself, leaving Arya standing near the bar. Lucien appeared at her elbow, his hand finding the small of her back with familiar certainty. "You okay?" "Yeah," Arya said. "Just thinking about how far we've come. From a desperate plea at a roulette table to this. From a fake arrangement to something real." Lucien pulled a small box from his pocket. Not the engagement ring he'd already given her, but something else. "I wanted you to have this." Inside was a key. "To what?" Arya asked. The Oasis Grand Casino. We bought it 3 months ago. Thought you might want to renovate it. Turn it into something better than what it was." Arya stared at the key, memories flooding back. Cocktail uniforms and bruised wrists. Trevor's laughter across gaming floors. The night she'd grabbed a stranger's sleeve and changed her entire life. "Why?" she asked. "Because that's where we started," Lucien said. "And I want to make sure everyone who works there has better options than you did. Better pay, better security, better ways out if they need them." Arya closed her fingers around the key. "You're really trying to be good." "I'm trying to be better," Lucien corrected. "There's a difference. Good is subjective. Better is measurable. And if you fail, then at least I failed trying to build something instead of just maintaining what my father left me." The party continued around them. Conversations about business and family, laughter that sounded almost normal. The kind of gathering that could have happened in any wealthy household if you ignored the security details and the carefully vetted guest list. Arya leaned into Lucien's shoulder, feeling the solid warmth of him. "Do you ever regret it? Asking me to pretend to be your girlfriend that night?" "Every day," Lucien said. Arya pulled back to look at him. "Really?" "Every day I regret that I had to manipulate you into my life instead of just being honest about wanting you there." His hand touched her face. "But I don't regret the result. You've made me question everything I thought I knew about power and loyalty and what it means to build something lasting." That sounds like a compliment and a criticism. "It's the truth, which is all I promised you." The party wound down as midnight approached. Guests departed with expensive gifts and carefully neutral expressions. The Moretti family might be going legitimate, but some habits died hard. Trust was still earned, loyalty still tested. Vittorio was the last to leave. He paused at the door, looking back at Arya. "My son chose well," he said simply. Then he was gone. Arya and Lucien stood alone in the penthouse, the city lights of Las Vegas spreading below them like scattered jewels. "What are you thinking?" Lucien asked. Arya thought about the girl who'd served cocktails while hiding bruises, who'd begged strangers for help, who'd believed her only value was in what men decided she was worth. She thought about 3 years of survival and 1 week of transformation and 2 years of building something that actually mattered. "I'm thinking I don't recognize the person I was before all this started," Arya said. "Is that good or bad?" "It's real. The rest I'll figure out as I go." Lucien pulled her closer, his arms wrapping around her with the kind of certainty that came from choosing someone every single day instead of just once. "We'll figure it out together," he said. And for the first time since Trevor had first raised his hand against her, Arya believed in a future that wasn't just about surviving. It was about living, about building, about taking blood money and broken pieces and transforming them into something that actually helped people. The Moretti Foundation funded 12 domestic violence shelters across Nevada within 3 years. Arya ran them all, using everything she'd learned from surviving Trevor to help other women find their way out. The Oasis Grand Casino was gutted and rebuilt with employee wellness programs, fair wages, and security trained to recognize signs of abuse. It became the highest-rated employer on the Strip. Lucien's transformation of the family empire was slow and painful. Some operations couldn't be legitimized, they were simply shut down. Some associates couldn't adapt, they were quietly removed. The Moretti name would never be completely clean, but it was cleaner, better, a work in progress. 5 years after that first night at the roulette table, Arya stood in the same spot with Lucien beside her. They played roulette together now, partners in every sense. The wheel spun. Red this time. Lucien's chips vanished. He laughed, genuine, warm, the sound of a man who'd learned that losing sometimes meant winning something more important. "Your turn," he said, pushing a fresh stack toward Arya. She placed the chips on black, the color that had started everything. The wheel spun. Black. The chips doubled. And Arya realized she'd been betting on black her entire life. On darkness and survival and desperate gambles. On men who used violence as control and relationships built on fear. But somewhere along the way, she'd learned to bet on herself too. On her ability to survive, to adapt, to transform pain into purpose. The dealer pushed the winnings toward her. Arya looked at Lucien. "Split it?" Always, he replied. They cashed out and walked through the casino together, past dealers and tourists and the endless churn of money and hope. Outside, the desert night was cool and clear. Las Vegas blazed against the darkness like a promise that bad decisions could sometimes lead to redemption. Arya took Lucien's hand, feeling the weight of the engagement ring on her finger. In 6 months, they'd make it official. A wedding small and private, witnessed by people who'd earned their trust. Not because Arya needed Lucien to save her, but because they'd both learned that strength wasn't about standing alone. It was about choosing who stood beside you, and defending that choice with everything you had. The cocktail waitress who'd once hidden bruises under makeup was gone. In her place stood a woman who'd walked through fire and come out forged into something harder, sharper, better. A woman who understood that survival was just the beginning. That real power came from transforming pain into purpose. That love, real love, wasn't about perfection or safety. It was about choosing someone despite their flaws, despite the danger, despite every logical reason to walk away, and building something together that neither could create alone. Arya looked up at the neon skyline, remembering the girl who'd once trembled in this same spot. "Thank you," she whispered to that frightened version of herself, for being brave enough to grab a stranger's sleeve, for surviving long enough to become something more, for refusing to quit even when quitting looked like the only rational choice. Lucien squeezed her hand. "What are you thanking?" "The past," Arya said, "for making the present possible." They walked to their car together, not a hired driver anymore, just them navigating the world as partners. The desert stretched endlessly beyond the city lights, filled with secrets and bodies and stories that would never be told. But Arya's story had been told, survived, rewritten, and somewhere in a domestic violence shelter funded by blood money transformed into hope, another woman was grabbing her own desperate chance at survival. Learning what Arya had learned, that sometimes the devil who saves you is just a man learning to be better, that sometimes love grows in the worst soil, that sometimes the only way out is through, and that surviving isn't the end of the story, it's where the real work begins. The work of becoming someone who doesn't just escape trauma, but transforms it, uses it, turns it into fuel for building something better than what came before. Arya Vale had walked into Lucien Moretti's world believing she had nothing left to lose. She was wrong. She'd had everything to gain, and she'd claimed it, not through performance or manipulation, through honesty and violence and the kind of fierce determination that came from surviving hell and choosing to come back stronger. The car pulled away from the casino, heading toward a penthouse that had become home, toward a future built on choices instead of circumstances, toward a life that was messy and complicated and dangerous, but real. And Arya Vale, former cocktail waitress, survivor, partner to the most feared man in Nevada, smiled as the city lights blurred past the windows, because she'd learned the most important lesson of all. You couldn't change where you came from, but you could absolutely change where you were going, and she was going somewhere better, with someone who'd walked through his own darkness and come out willing to build something different on the other side. Together, always together, the devil and the girl who'd changed him. Surviving, building, becoming something neither had believed possible when they first met at a roulette table on a rain-soaked night in Las Vegas. The wheel had spun. The bets had been placed, and against every odd, against all logic, against the violence and manipulation and pain, they'd won. Not money, not power, something more valuable. A future they'd fought for. Together. And in the end, that was the only bet that mattered. The end.